It's Thursday, so that means Dr. Mike is here to fix your life and your lineup.
My advice as a psychologist, prey on the desperation of others.
But only when it comes to fantasy football, not in life in general, right?
Yes?
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristin Brey with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin!
Hello, Wisconsin. It is Thursday. How are you doing, Jane Van
I
Meyer?
am wonderful. And yourself?
I am good. I am ready for the weekend.
Yes, I would be with you on that one.
I am ready for the weekend.
Time for a little snoozing, I think.
Yeah. Cleaning my house.
Ah, that's always so much fun.
It's funny. So I'm very excited for our guest in the 1 o'clock hour, Christina Farr and Alyssa Jaffe, who are both women that I've known since 2011. And I met them separately. Alyssa, I met when I spent a semester in Washington, D.C. We were 20 something. She was in her first couple of years of her career. And Christina, I met in San Francisco in the same year at like a party. They both are now high-powered venture capitalists who invest in women's health tech, or health tech in general. But we're going to talk about to them today about women's health tech. But one of the topics I want to talk to them about, because they're both moms, and how they manage the careers that they have while also being mothers, because I can't even manage to do this show and clean my portion of the house.
You'll get there. It's a process.
I don't know how we put a baby into this situation.
Well, they might have extra help, You never
we'll
know.
see. Maybe I'll ask
They might have a cleaning person.
Maybe. But that is on the docket today, is to clean the portions of my house that have been ignored. But anyways, we have a great show today. So
We do.
Dr. Mike is here because it's Thursday. So if you have questions about your life or your lineup, 844-967-2789. Submit them via text by 11:30, and we will ask him those. You can also always call in and talk live with the doctor. And later on, then we have Dan Schaefer's back, friend of the show. We're going to see if there's any good news, as he as a reminder, Dan Schaefer covered every single legislative race in Wisconsin, which is 116.
He's been busy.
He's been busy, yes. Talk about someone he also has 2 kids. It's,
right.
Someone who balances it a lot. So we're going to see anything that's up to new developments in any of the legislative races that's interesting. His piece, I think this week, is investigating a little bit further on what a flat tax means. This is what Tim Michels is proposing as far as changing income tax in Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
My understanding is that a flat tax means there's a handful of very wealthy Wisconsinites who would pay less, and then a lot of Wisconsinites who would end up paying more.
Gosh, it feels like deja vu. It feels like we've been here before.
Yeah. So he'll break that down for me, and of course, we'll talk to him about the Bucks, because I think they're 3-0. They won again last night against the Nets.
Yes.
And so we will see any updates from him, because I have not been able to watch the game. Was not able to watch the game last night. I actually took your advice. I didn't quite take your advice last night. I did not watch The Handmaid's Tale.
Good. She texted me after we had a long, busy day yesterday, and you had extra stuff to do after the show. And then she texted me about 6 o'clock, and I'm so tired and I'm hungry, and I think I'm going to watch The Handmaid's Tale. And I said, yeah, don't do that.
And I didn't.
Good.
But I also didn't watch Pixar, which is what you told me to do. I watched The Watcher, the new Netflix show that bumped Dahmer from being the most streamed show. And have you seen the trailer for this at all?
No.
It's based on a true story of this family in the New Jersey suburbs who bought this house and starts getting threatening letters of someone who's watching them in the house. And I read some of the what's real, what's not before I even started watching the show. It's well done. It's creepy.
My husband, and now that I think about it, my husband has mentioned it. Yeah, he said it's good, and it's not gory, right?
It's not gory. It's just... It's creepy the way Get Out was creepy until it became gory in the final scenes.
Right.
But it's the music, it's the something lurking in the background, like what is actually going on. It's a good Halloween time
Scary.
binge. I watched 6 episodes last night.
Oh, wow.
No, I watched 5. I watched 5, but that is like 5 hours of television.
Oh,
so
man.
I checked out for a night.
Well, good.
But with the 12 days till the election, depending on if you ask me or Luke. I thought one of the things that we could start doing to kick off each show until the election is relying on the good work that PolitiFact or Wisconsin Watch has done as far as trying to debunk or either verify or falsify some of the claims that are being, promoted in political ads and in stump speeches, et cetera. And potentially, if I have the time, I can try to do some of my own research. So I'd love if you're listening and there are things that you would like to know whether or not that is true, or you feel like you've heard it but you don't understand it,
Or maybe you want some more clarification.
or you want
on
some more
something.
clarification, shoot us a text and we'll write it down, and I'll make sure to try to prioritize reading or summarizing what is already out there or trying to ask someone who knows. So 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-party. But I thought, so PolitiFact is a great resource. I mean, I'm sure it's one of those things where sometimes people are like, well, these facts don't agree with my feelings, and so I don't want to. They're biased, but they're not. At least for the Wisconsin, and they have PolitiFact as a total organization does this nationally, right? And
For every state.
for every
covers
state,
everything.
and they have different partnerships in each state. It's a treasure trove of things you can go find. It's kind of how Snopes is similar to that. And in Wisconsin, they partner with Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. And so I know I do still work there. And so I know how seriously Journal-Sentinel takes fact-checking these things. But it also, if you go on there, you can see things rumors that start milling about on social media. Like it's a really great resource. And then Wisconsin Watch has also been doing fact briefs as far as, and theirs a little bit shorter, but Wisconsin Watch is an investigative journalism outlet in Wisconsin that also does really great work. And so the first one I thought I would start with, there's 2. So there's 2 Tim Michaels ones today. And then there's a whole list of backlogs, the one that we'll do tomorrow and all next week and
right up until the election.
until November 8th. So the first one came from a organization called Better Wisconsin Together, and they made a claim in a campaign ad that, quote, they say that Tim Michaels, quote, opposes closing the loophole that allows domestic abusers to buy guns. And PolitiFact, their PolitiFact truthometer that's true.
So he would close a loophole to make it easier for domestic violence.
No.
No.
He opposes closing the loophole.
Of course.
So
Silly man.
Michael's on a radio show. I think it was Vicky McKenna. I think that we'll say it said, you just can't have somebody make a complaint against you. And you're right. Your Second Amendment right be taken away. Now that won't happen here in Wisconsin when I'm governor. And he also, in a televised town hall meeting, he said, I want to make sure that the law-abiding gun owners aren't having their guns confiscated because an angry ex-spouse makes a complaint. And I think he even said something along those lines in the debate. And how he conflated what red flag laws are.
We talked to Attorney General Josh Call earlier this week. That doesn't happen. I mean, your ex can make a claim, but it's not like without any due process at all, someone just shows up and takes all your guns. That's not how it works.
Yeah. So in a Better Wisconsin Together their political fund that they funded, the ad says there's a dangerous loophole that lets some domestic abusers buy guns. And politicians in both parties are trying to close the loophole. You know who said they won't? Radical Tim Michaels, because everyone's radical. And this is something that actually was, it made it up to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And because of this, because domestic violence in Wisconsin falls under a disturbance, it's not a felony. And so a lot of times in the situation where a domestic violence, you get convicted and charged for it, but because it falls under this, that's why it's called the boyfriend loophole. And so because it doesn't raise to the level of a convicted charge where you're no longer allowed to have firearms, which happens, right? If you're a felon, that you
Right.
no longer have, I mean,
You're not supposed
you're
to.
not supposed to. But because this is a misdemeanor in Wisconsin, a lot of domestic violence charges, it doesn't surpass the bar of being able to then get a firearm. And we know from talking to Carmen Petrie, often when there are firearms involved, domestic violence goes from violence to death.
Yes.
So, but in his view, and it's been proven that in multiple times, he has said that he is more worried about a disgruntled ex abusing that and being able to take their guns away versus protecting people. And so that one is true. So their final ruling, PolitiFact, says that the A Better Wisconsin Together political fund said Tim Michels opposes closing the loophole that allows domestic violence abusers to buy guns. And then during a Republican primary forum, Michels noted, I want to make sure that law-abiding gun owners aren't having their guns confiscated because of an angry ex-spouse makes a complaint. And also said it in radio. And Michels, through his statements, suggests that closing this gun law loophole would be equivalent to taking away a Second Amendment right. So they claim that they rate that claim to be true. And it's interesting because I made this point back when the Supreme Court made the decision as far as not their hands being tied as far as closing this loophole. And it's something that the legislature actually has to fix, not that the Supreme Court can't, or the Wisconsin Supreme Court can't. And because what they always say is law-abiding citizens. Well, last time I checked, committing domestic violence is a crime.
Apparently, it's just not a very serious crime.
Yeah. And so when we talk about who's allowed to have guns and we say we don't want criminals to have guns, well, does that just not include people who beat up their significant others? So... All right, well, we're going to go to commercial, and then we're going to do one more fact check when we come back. And still submit your questions, because then we're going to have some fun at 11:30 with Dr. Mike, 844-967-2789. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
So let's leave it alone, 'cause we can't see eye to eye. There ain't no good guy, there ain't no bad guy. There's only you and me, and we just disagree. Ooh, oh, oh.
Hi, everyone. Listen to my show, The Matt McNeil Show, weekday afternoons at 3 p.m. on the Shaw 101. 1 hour every weekday where we'll talk all sorts of things like politics, especially with what's going on this election season, plus a lot of other things, too. Parenting, the arts, religion, music, beer. If it matters to Wisconsin and Minnesota, we'll talk about it. Phone calls are welcome at 952-946-6205 for 1 hour each day. Come see the train chimp, The Matt McNeil Show, with the aggressive progressive Matt McNeil, 3 p.m. weekday afternoons right here on the Shaw 101.
So all you folks out there, if you haven't registered to vote, register to vote, get ready to vote. There are so many things on the ballot this November at our freedom, our liberty, and our way of life. But we'll get to all of that this evening.
The Paul Revere Show with Mark Thompson. Listen Mondays 7 to 8 p.m. on the Shaw 101 FM and WAUK 540 AM.
It's the Max Inc. Halloween Spooktacular, live from the Wisco Bar and Grill in Madison. Come meet rocker Terry Barr and yours truly, Jimmy K, as we broadcast live 6 to 9 p.m. Then, after 9, live music featuring Bron Scorpion and Bertha Tragedy. Oh, and rockers band Iron Plow is playing too. What are the odds? The Max Inc. Halloween Spooktacular, Saturday, October 29th at the Wisco, 852 Williamson Street in Madison. Join us, or I'm going to throw eggs at your house.
On the Shaw. Daytime highs approaching 54 this afternoon under partly cloudy skies, southeasterly winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Partly cloudy skies again tonight, lows level off around 36. Mainly clear skies tomorrow, highs around 57. Dry with temperatures a bit above average Saturday and Sunday, and highs in the upper 50s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 46 degrees.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey. When we come back from the next break, Dr. Mike will be here. So a reminder to give us your questions about your career, your love life, your family, or your fantasy football lineup. 844-967-2789. But we're starting a new thing today that will only last, I guess this will be 8. We'll have 8 days of this, of kicking the show off by going to PolitiFact or to Wisconsin Watch and debunking or verifying some of these claims that have been on political campaign ads or stump speeches, et cetera. And so the next one is, does Tim Michels oppose access to birth control? This is from Wisconsin Watch. They published this yesterday. And their finding is no, he does not. Based on what he said that they're saying that no, he does not oppose birth control. So in July 2022, ahead of the Republican primary for governor, Tim Michels clarified that he was not against birth control, including emergency contraceptive known as Plan B.
Oh.
And so he also told USA Today, the Wisconsin Network and Wisconsin Public Radio, after 2 campaign stops in Green Bay and Eau Claire, that while he is against abortion, I'm not against contraception. And earlier that month, their campaign did not respond to questions from the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel about whether or not he would sign legislation banning Plan B. But then at an event in Calumet County, Michels told an attendee that abortion pills that are being passed off as contraception would be illegal in Wisconsin. A spokesperson said the question was referring to medication abortion, not Plan B. So, at least from what he says, not banning birth control.
I think it's important to remember that there are pro-life groups in Wisconsin who do want to outlaw all contraception and go back to the rhythm method, which is how my cousin ended up with 5 children.
Well, one of the women who was at the event in Green Bay on Tuesday, she said it kind of lovingly, but her mother, good Catholic, 8 children in 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
And but this is the thing that I found wild, is because it's like, does he even know which birth control methods do what? Because apparently a lot of doctors in Wisconsin don't know either. So a WisCore study surveyed 893 Wisconsin physicians about how contraception works. 17% incorrectly believed that IUDs work by causing an abortion.
Oh, my goodness.
And 39% incorrectly believed that emergency contraception works by causing an abortion.
Are they interviewing chiropractors or what?
I don't know. Male physicians were more likely than female physicians to hold these inaccurate beliefs.
Shocker.
Physicians who were exposed to abortion during medical education were less likely to incorrectly believe that contraception causes abortion. Misconceptions about how contraception works are common, and little research has studied this topic among physicians. And so I asked, actually, Dr. Mike, psychologist Dr. Mike, his husband is a internal medicine doctor, and I actually am trying to get him on in December because he's also become an addiction specialist, and in hospitals there's that overlap, there's not a lot, so he's going to come on and talk about a totally different topic in December. But I texted him this morning. I was like, how is this possible? How do you go through med school and have this many people just not understand it? And he goes, if it's not your field of study,
you're not going to cover it.
Yeah. And so just to get it straight, IUDs and Plan B keep a egg from ever implanting into your uterus.
And therefore it cannot form.
So it is, yes. So that it is not an abortion because it is never actually attached to your uterus. And so it cannot be a baby. And so it is not contraception. Plan B and an IUD do not work because they're giving you an abortion.
Just got to shake your head, Again,
But
I understand. Again, if you're not going into gynecology or something like that, you're not going to know the specifics. But in this day and age, and especially with
if
what's
you're having
going on,
relations with a woman,
yeah,
and trying to avoid getting pregnant,
you should know these things.
You should know these things.
Mhm.
And
Knowledge is power.
yes. And so, so it's one thing because I think that was kind of the trip up originally as Tim Michaels, even before he won the nomination. I think he kind of swapped out what he thought Plan B versus birth control, like daily birth control pills versus medical abortion pills. Those are all different things.
Shouldn't they have to pass a test before they pass
Make laws about it?
legislation? And just to make sure they have a basic understanding of how these things work? Or should they just go ahead and do it?
How would that even work as far as what basic knowledge should a person have to have in order to hold office?
Well, we'll make it easy and we'll give them multiple choice.
No, but that's a real question as far as if to be elected and to be responsible for laws that affect people's lives outside, including, but also outside of healthcare.
Sure.
What would be on that test? Because think about how many different types of laws
True.
Either get proposed and never get a hearing or do get signed in like, what should you have to know in order to have an opinion on laws that are going to affect people?
Because
it brings up a question as far as gatekeeping of, anyone and everyone should be able to run, and if they gain enough popularity, but
doesn't it say there cannot be a test?
Probably.
I'm fairly certain that's a thing.
All right, let's go look. We'll look into it and
Okay.
we'll come back.
All
All right, tomorrow we will have 2 more. If you have suggestions on which claims we should prioritize, give us a text. Or if you want to have a question for Dr. Mike, also give us a text or a call, 844-967-2789. That is 844-96-PARTY. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, Dr. Mike will be here to fix your life and your lineup. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
A progressive voice for rural Wisconsin. WAUK 540 AM. Always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
Hey, Susan, how you doing?
I'm good, Earl. Again, I want to thank you for a wonderful show. The interesting thing is that you're now starting to give people in that part of Wisconsin some food for thought. Having him call in was wonderful. I think we all have to really work hard together to bring a lot more people in the fold.
I'm glad that gentleman called. And it's not that I'm so arrogant that I think I know everything. There's too much in the world to know and think more of myself than I should.
Here on the Shaw 101 FM and WAUK 540 AM.
Free and equal education is and has always been a cornerstone to this nation. Yet our public school system, once the envy of the world, has never faced more scrutiny than right now. Caught between political bickering and big business cash grabs, our schools are under attack, and the people that stand to lose the most are our children. Join Dr. Tim Slacker and Dr. Johnny Lupinacci for Busted Pencils Radio. Each week they take on the challenges and issues facing our schools, teachers, and communities. Busted Pencils, Tuesdays at 7.
To growing. I'm Jackie Quinn with an AP News Minute. Today's GDP figure revealing a 2.6% increase in the annual rate from July through September, higher than analysts expected. The nation's gross domestic product grew based on stronger exports and consumer spending. But it's not all sunny news, reports our Ben Thomas.
The Federal Reserve has aggressively raised interest rates to fight chronic inflation and is set to do so twice more before the end of the year. Chair Jerome Powell has warned that will bring higher unemployment and possibly a recession.
Looking to buy a new car? Average prices on new and used are finally coming down about 1% from their peak in September. A federal judge in Arizona says he hopes to decide by Friday whether to stop members of a political group from monitoring outdoor ballot drop boxes in the Phoenix area. Their activities sparked allegations of voter intimidation. I'm Jackie Quinn.
Hi, this is Joe Cordell with the law firm Cordell & Cordell. Divorce can be complicated, especially if children are involved. If you're a father and want to protect your role in your children's lives, remember Cordell & Cordell. We've helped men with matters like these for 30 years, and we'd love to help you.
Contact Cordell & Cordell to schedule an appointment with one of our firm's Atlanta area attorneys. 404-793-0000. Online at CordellCordell.com. 1 Glen Lake Parkway Northeast, Suite 975, Atlanta, Georgia 30328.
We tried Dynovite nutritional
You hear me?
supplement, and after a couple of weeks, we noticed a big difference. Our little Gizmo's coat was shinier, and there was a lot less scratching and shedding.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynovite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynovite.
For Civic Media, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. Republican gubernatorial candidate Tim Michels has floated the idea of implementing a flat tax in Wisconsin if elected governor. Michels has provided few details on his tax plan, but stated he would like to get the flat rate under 5%, and he would not want to raise taxes on anyone. Wisconsin's nonpartisan Legislative Fiscal Bureau prepared a new analysis that shows a flat tax would need to be 5.22% to not require significant spending cuts in the state. At that rate, 73% of Wisconsin tax filers would see an increase in their taxes, and the top earners in the state would see a significant decrease in the amount of tax owed, including for Michels himself. A flat rate that doesn't raise anyone's taxes would need to be set at 3.45%. According to economists, that rate would reduce state revenue by $5.59 billion in the first year and $3.855 billion every year after that. You're listening to the Shaw 101 FM WAUK 540 AM.
Is your love life a fantasy? Having issues with your fantasy football roster? Helping with football and your love life? Here's your new best friend, Dr. Mike.
Because I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey. It is 11:30 on a Thursday, so that means it is time for Dr. Mike Fixes Your Life and Your Lineup. Dr. Michael McCutcheon is a psychologist, executive coach, and co-founder of Wanderlust Careers, a firm that specializes in career achievement and life satisfaction. He teaches counseling at New York University. He's been published in multiple publications. He's here to help us tackle topics like work, love, fitness, and financial goals. And he loves to help people make easy, free money on DraftKings and FanDuel. So he also happens to be my best friend of 15 years. So welcome back. Week 8?
Yeah, week 8. Morning. How y'all doing?
We're good. We're keeping our head above water. I guess let's just start with, this is not a submitted question, but maybe it's a submitted question by me. But for those of us who live and breathe politics and are very invested in the midterms that are coming up and have stress about it, is that a common thing? Are you hearing this from other people? And if so, what are you telling them to kind of regulate their emotions around something that beyond their vote or canvassing or calling? There's stuff you can do beyond just voting if you care about this election, but there's also a lot, you're up against a lot of money on both sides. And so how are your clients, if they are at all, talking about the upcoming election?
Constantly. I mean, it's been huge this week. I had one day where I feel like every single person talked about it for at least 10 or 15 minutes, which is a while. People, just the stress of it, thinking of, people who are young parents and thinking about politics and how it affects their kids, people who are single women and thinking about stuff we were just talking about as far as control over their bodies and reproductive rights. People thinking that who we elect, what does that say about the culture? There's a lot of election deniers, and what does that mean if we elect some of those folks? I mean, it's been pretty consistent. Also, there have been some people, I was on a call earlier this morning where I think part of the election talk was everybody who's running for office is a total idiot, so we're in trouble, right? So there's that sentiment as well.
I had that conversation after the Pennsylvania Senate debate. I didn't watch it, but I had a friend who did. He was like, they probably should have just not debated because both neither looked great. And I
Yeah.
feel like, and so that I talk about that all the time, as just far as like who even wants to run anymore, and getting the best possible people to run in these positions and be in charge. So those are all very different things.
Yeah.
But as far as in general, what is your go-to advice or suggestions when it comes to this?
Dealing with it? Yeah. First of all, you're totally right about people not wanting to run. So for those of you who don't know, I actually live in Denver now, and there's something here called the RTD, which is basically our public transportation system. So we have like a light rail and buses and all of that sort of stuff. So it's called RTD, and there are 8 people. There are 8 spots on the board of directors, and as of now, which is just a couple weeks away from the election, not even 2 full weeks away from the election, there are 4 open spots. 4 people don't want to continue with the job anymore, so there's 4 open spots. For those 4 open spots, Kristin, Brey, can you guess how many people are running?
1.
0.
No.
0 people are running, and so I was downstairs thinking, I was like, oh, well, people, come on, we could do this. Like, maybe I should. Yeah, I don't know. I was feeling very spicy on a lunch break, and I was like, maybe, because I'm not doing enough, right? I just have my practice talking to you guys, teaching. I'm really bored and twiddling my thumbs all the time. So I thought, why don't I just get another job, right? And so I look it up. It looks like quite the undertaking, and people say that it's so much work that it's largely can feel like a very busy part-time, if not full-time job. It pays $12,000 per year. And I'm like, this is why that either A, you're going to get 0 folks doing it, because not a lot of people can afford to have that be something that they do with their lives. People have to work and put food on the table. And when I was reading the description of like what goes into it, it's a lot. So anyway, so that's you're not alone in sort of thinking that nobody wants to do it, because I thought about it for about 6 seconds and then was like, I'm out on that one. But to your larger question, how am I helping people deal with the stress? Honestly, with a lot of the subjects that we talk about, I feel like so many people have negative emotions that largely have to do with just not knowing. Right? So much of our anxiety is not that we're afraid of what comes next. A lot of times we're afraid of that we don't know what comes next. I don't know what's on the other side of this. And so I think that what you're doing right now, and I think you're going to be doing until the election, right, is taking questions from people and getting some clarity around it. So I would recommend people, actually reading, pamphlets that come to you and reading about, about politicians, about, different ordinances that you're going to need to vote on, because education can really help you feel like you're making the right decision. We can do mail-in or drop-off ballots here, and it can feel very long to do, and it feels very overwhelming. But as soon as you start reading it a little bit, you feel a little less sort of scared about it. So I would just say, first of all, education. Listen to this show. Let Kristin talk you through, the policies and the politicians and what they stand for. And I'm sure that they can get some information from you and your site about where else to go when they don't have you for 3 hours a day. I think the other thing is too, like you said, we talked about this last week. Didn't we talk about this last week, that action is the antidote to despair, right? Do something. And even if it's something that feels small, and you might say to yourself, this is not going to swing the entire, Senate or gubernatorial election, but at least it'll make you feel like you're doing something. If you can, if you can go door to door really quickly, if you can help even just get out the vote, even if that means that you just make a deal with your friend or partner that we're each going to text 2 or 3 friends or relatives or something like that, right? To just say, hey, what's your plan to vote, right? Because I think that we can all agree, regardless of who we're voting for or what we're voting on, I think we can all agree that we should all be voting. So I think if you can just sort of make sure that you and the people close to you are engaged and you're doing something and you're educated about what you're doing, that it can at least like alleviate your stress. Now, we'll talk again second week in November about how everything falls
No, we
out.
won't, because I will be on my honeymoon. This will maybe be a good time to drop that I strategically planned our honeymoon to be 2 days after the election. One, because the obvious work that felt like I didn't want to leave before the election.
Yeah.
But then also to decompress and understand where we go next, depending on what the results of this election are. So I will not be here that Thursday.
Right. So it looks like Dr. Jane, it's up to you to, to take care of
all
folks.
falls on your shoulders.
And you know what we're gonna do, you guys? We're gonna watch Pixar movies.
Yes.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Count me in. Yeah. But yeah, I think that like this, as of right now, I mean, nobody knows what's going to happen, right? So what you can do is
Pollsters don't know what's going to happen. There's conflicting polling, right? Then that's, I this is we're going a little bit off of what we usually do for this segment, but I think our politics are personal, and the personal is politics, and so the understanding that the things that happen and in elections, because elections have consequences, affects our emotional health, our mental health, sometimes our actual physical health, and is all the more reason to get as many people involved and educated as possible. But so it's kind of on topic, and now I lost my thought.
Well, it's very much on
No,
topic.
I was going to say somewhere. I forgot where I was going to take this, but
it's on topic. I mean, I think if you go to work and well, I know this would never happen with you guys because you have the best co-workers in the world, Jane and Kristin. But for a lot of other people, they go to work and they don't like the boss, or they don't like the new people they hired, and all these young kids don't want to work, or all these old fogies are telling me what to do. And then you go home. Of course, you bring that with you. You're going to be a grump with your partner. You're going to be a grump with the dog or with the kids, and that, of course, goes to politics, right? If you're nervous that the libs are going to take away your guns, you're nervous that the conservatives are going to take away your rights and all that sort of stuff. I mean, how does that not weigh on you all of the time? It's big. It's overarching. So of course, yeah, the personal is political, the political is personal, absolutely. And so I think people should be, instead of just scrunching up their faces and feeling all tight and tense all the time. Okay, what would make me feel better? Maybe I can just do a little bit of something, and maybe I can read a little something so that I know what's going on and alleviate a little bit of that stress just for myself,
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's jump to my lineup, because I did very well last week. 124 to 92.
Oh, you smoked. Remember, you were only 53% chance of winning.
Well, I made some changes.
Okay.
And so I remember last week I made some changes. I went and I swapped out Justin Fields and got Jimmy Garoppolo. So I dropped Justin Fields, and now my backup quarterback is Jimmy Garoppolo, who played pretty well. And so, but I'm assuming that I should swap him out because Hurts is back and doesn't have a bye week this week.
Hurts is going to be great this week. They're playing the Steelers, and I think he's in the discussion for MVP, and you snagged him. Yes, that's great.
Okay, so then my running back is Mixon versus Cook. No, I think my running back he is the best. So I think everyone else don't have a bye week. So maybe I shouldn't change anything. Cancel. So then I have so I have Hurts, Mixon, Pierce, Pittman, Sutton, Ertz, Jacobs, who's questionable. And then the Bengals defense, because I dropped both. I've now dropped San Francisco and the Chargers. And so I have the Bengals defense, and then I have the same kicker, and I don't have a backup kicker.
The Bengals are playing the terrible, horrible Browns, so you're in great shape there. I very much support
Which we should remind everyone is your team.
Yeah, they're the worst team of all time. So you have Pittman there. They just for FYI, Indianapolis just benched their starting quarterback, Matt Ryan, and they're starting a quarterback this week, Sam Erlinger. He's never thrown a pass in the NFL, and that's who Michael Pittman's quarterback is going to be. So just consider swapping Pittman out for somebody if you have somebody good.
Maybe Brown.
You have AJ Brown?
Yeah.
100% switch that.
Okay,
out.
great. All right.
Great.
All right. Perfect. How much time
do
do
we call that? A little education. You know what we call that? That's called a stack, because you have Jalen Hurts for the Eagles and AJ Brown for the Eagles. So if he throws passes from Hurts to Brown, then that's called a stack, because you get kind of double the points, because you get the quarterback points and the wide receiver points.
All right. Well, now my win probability is up to 55%. So feeling good going into the weekend. All right. Well, with the 3 minutes that we have left, Brooke, do you have an update on how your negotiation went for your other job?
Yes. So it went very well. When I went there, I was like, okay, I was like replaying your words in my head. I was like, ask for what you're worth. Like I was like talking to myself in the car, and then I went in and it went great. And I got more than I expected. So.
Wow. That's fantastic. So like, okay, now Brooke, this is a new lesson that you got to do, and you got to put it into action. So if somebody were to ask you this question next week or whatever, what would you say if you said, oh, I used to be, afraid like that too, but I'm not anymore? What would you say? How would you encourage them or calm them down?
Well, I would tell them, one, to ask for what you're worth, but don't be afraid to ask for a little more. And also to remember that this person is paying you for a job that you're doing, so don't feel bad about it, because money can feel really icky, like to have in conversation, but again, you're doing work for somebody and you deserve to get paid what you're worth.
Look at you.
I know. Well,
Bravo.
okay, I have a question for you though.
Great.
Can you be my therapist?
Well, you got another paycheck, so maybe you could pay him.
We could do. I think you live in Wisconsin, so I probably can't do that. But across state lines. But I'm happy to. If Kristin wants, we can do like a regular segment every couple of weeks where Brooke comes up and has a question that I'm sure a lot of people your age would have. We can do that here, or we can, you can get my email from Kristin and we can consult. I'm just really happy for you. That's
Oh,
awesome.
thanks.
And remember too, Brooke, we're not just doing the job like in that hour or on that day that we're doing. We're taking all the experience from like the training you had to do, or the education you had to do, and all the experience from like the on-the-job training. That's like what's baked into your hourly rate, right? So you're worth so much more, sort of like compounding interest as it goes on. So I'm so glad you got what you're worth. I'm happy for you.
Thanks.
All right. Well, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, there will be more of Dr. Mike Fixes Your Life and Your Lineup. Stay with us. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Early voting is open now and through November 4th at your city, town, or village hall. Go to myvote.wi.gov for details. Paid for by Blue Sky Waukesha.
Multi-millionaire Senator Ron Johnson won't stop trying to cut our Social Security. But you don't have to take my word for it. He just keeps saying it. Talking about benefit cuts.
Do you need to reduce benefits, maybe on a means-tested basis?
Or forcing seniors to work longer.
But you have to factor that in the programs, probably in terms of raising retirement ages.
And if that wasn't scary enough, now he's saying Social Security shouldn't even be guaranteed. And if politicians in Washington didn't renew it every year, it should end. I guess ending Social Security isn't a big deal if you're as rich as Senator Ron Johnson. But for the rest of us seniors, it's a matter of life and death, literally. Paid for by AFT Solidarity, www.aft.org, and not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. AFT Solidarity is responsible for the content of this advertising.
The election isn't just about the candidates, it's about you. Check your voting status or register to vote right now at myvote.wi.gov and cast your ballot on Tuesday, November 8th. This message from your Civic Media network of stations.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Partly cloudy skies this afternoon with highs around 54. Winds out of the southeast 5 to 10 miles an hour. Partly cloudy again tonight, lows around 36. Mainly sunny skies and calm tomorrow. High temperatures reach up to 57. Dry with temps a bit above average Saturday and Sunday, and highs in the upper 50s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 46 degrees.
Personal file, 69, offense. He was giving them the business.
Is your love life a fantasy? Having issues with your fantasy football roster? Helping with football and your love life? Here's your new best friend, Dr. Mike.
Because I'm good enough, I'm smart enough, and doggone it, people like me.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey. We are in the second segment of Dr. Mike Fixes Your Life and Your Lineup with Dr. Michael McCutcheon. All right, so I think this one is relevant for a lot of people, especially women, especially young people. But hey, Dr. Michael, I'm a 30-year-old woman and I'm tired of being taken for granted at work and in my personal life. I've been interviewing for new jobs because I'm so upset about this. I have a master's degree and several years of solid work experience, and yet I'm constantly talked down to by my bosses, and most of them are also women. Additionally, my friends will often take my devotion for granted or talk over me or change our plans at the last minute. I'm sick of it. What can I do to get some respect and start being treated better by my colleagues and friends?
I like this Rodney Dangerfield question. What do I got to do to get some respect around here? It's a good question. Well, first and foremost, I think, if we're being honest, it's always helpful to start with ourselves. We can talk about your friends and maybe your workplace and whatnot. And it sounds like you're thinking about applying for a new job. Great. But I think we should look at our side of the street first. And I do think it's important to remember that we teach people how to treat us, right? And so each day we go to work, how we show up, if we, treat ourselves with respect, if we have some boundaries around things, and especially with friends, we let them know that when they talk over us, I actually wasn't finished talking. And, this is like the second time in a row you've canceled plans last minute. I just want to make sure that my time's being respected. Those aren't the easiest things to do. And it sounds like you're probably a really kind person. And perhaps some people have mistaken your kindness for weakness, but no more. Right? I mean, let's look at our side of the street and start, teaching people to see us in a different way. So, the things you can replace, maybe in the short term, try to show up to work differently. In the longest term, it doesn't sound like it's necessarily a respectful culture. So if you're thinking of getting out of there, get out of there. I would see this as not just, okay, I'm starting a new job. Hopefully these people will be nicer. Hopefully they will, but also what can I do differently? And how can I show up differently to this job to make sure that right from the get-go, I'm not seen as somebody who can just be walked all over. Sounds like you've done a lot of work. You have a master's degree, years of experience. You're right. You deserve to be treated with respect. We all do. And so I think that I think that the way that you train these new people how to treat you at a new job is great, but it's not too late to start. So definitely start that now. With the friends, that might be a little bit more difficult because we don't want to just say adios to all of our friends, right? That's probably not good form. But I do think that it's important to have friends who really want to hear you, right? Kristin and I have been friends for, like she said, like 15 years. It's not because we just don't tell each other the truth, right? We absolutely do. That wouldn't be a very valuable friend if every time she said, "Hey, does this look good on me?" and it didn't, I said, "You look great," or that I wouldn't be very, very useful to her. Vice versa. So I mean, I just think it's important to actually have these conversations with folks, and if they're not mature enough to hear it, or if they push back and try to gaslight you and tell you that that's not the truth, then maybe it is time to start weeding some of those out. So I think you're in a tough spot here, but I think first and foremost, instead of waiting for like the people around you or the world around you to change, start with the self. Okay.
And Dr. Mike, isn't that the hallmark of a good friend, is someone who is willing to tell you the hard truths, not be cruel to you, but nobody wants to be surrounded by a bunch of yes people.
Well, some people do.
Well, that's true.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of think about this similarly to the way we would have with like a romantic relationship, right? With a romantic relationship, it's like, why are you in this relationship, or what makes you think that this is a good relationship to be in? And it might sound really simplistic, but I'm a very simple man, as you know, and so it's super simple. It's just 2 steps. One is I know how I feel about this other person, and it's overwhelmingly positive. And part 2 is I know how they feel about me, and it's overwhelmingly positive. If I don't have that, I don't have anything. Nothing else matters, right? You have to have that. So I think sort of the same thing with your friends. If they're talking over you or disrespecting you or canceling plans, or they don't care about what you have to say or your time, maybe their opinion of you isn't overwhelmingly positive. Mm-hmm. So they don't deserve your time. They don't deserve your friendship.
Yep. I'm hearing that loud and clear as far as I think the excuses, and sometimes we do this in romantic relationships, but I also think sometimes in our friends, especially if you've been friends with someone for a long time, of making excuses when they're not matching the energy or the effort, and wanting to believe that it's not that there's something that's shifted in your relationship or your friendship, but also just accepting that you deserve to put energy into people who are putting energy back into you.
That is right. That's absolutely right.
All right. Well, in the last couple minutes that we have, let's do over under. The Philadelphia Eagles are the NFL's only undefeated team. They're currently 6-0. The NFL season is 17 games long. Will the Eagles win over or under 16.5 games this year?
Oh, wow. So that question is basically, will the Eagles go undefeated?
Yes.
Or will they not go undefeated? Will they win more than 16 and a half games? I don't think there's been an undefeated season since 1972, which is 50 years for those of you counting at home. Miami Dolphins, 1972. And every year, I don't know if you know this, but every year they're all watching. They're openly watching, waiting for every team to have a loss, and they open champagne when the last undefeated team loses.
Oh, that's funny.
I like the Eagles a lot. I think they're really good.
Why are they so good this year? What did they do differently than any other team that it seems to be struggling? Like every other team, I feel like keeps talking about how this season's weird and no one's good and blah, blah, blah.
I think the two things they did is they really took care of what they call the trenches. Like their offensive line and their defensive line is great. And like if we can protect Jalen Hurts and give him some time, he's going to do great things. And if we can rush the quarterback, they're going to do bad things. And they do that better. I think they've got a top 5 offensive line and top 5 defensive line. Nobody else can say that. And Jalen Hurts has just increasingly gotten a little bit better every year. And this year he's fantastic. But
that's why I'm glad that I have him on my fantasy team.
I am too. You're going to win again this week. I'm looking at their schedule. They have the Giants, who have been weirdly good, who are 6-1 twice still. They have the Cowboys still. They have the Packers still on a Sunday night game. I think the Eagles are really, really good. I think they're going to win their division. I think they're going to get into the playoffs easily. And no, I do not think they're going to go undefeated. I think somebody's going to trip them up there. That has to happen eventually. But they're great, and they're an easy team to root for. But yeah, I would call them let's call it 14 games. Yeah.
All right. Well, we only got 1 minute left because you have not been very good in your Packer predictions. But
no, I have not.
We're 2-3. So fact or fiction, the Packers will make at least one big move before the trade deadline, which is 5 days away on November 1st. Fact or fiction?
Okay, I'm going to do a cop-out because I'm so bad at Packers stuff. I'm going to say yes because I hope that they will and they need to. My God, do something, anything, please. You're going to get probably killed by the Bills this week. I'm sorry to say it. But also the free agent deadline is the 15th, and you can go get OBJ or something like that. So go either, if you don't get a trade in the next 5 days, get a free agent, get a splashy one, and you need to do something. So that's a hopeful yes.
Hopeful. Okay. All right, Dr. Mike, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you again next week. This is As Goes Wisconsin. Stick with us.
They're opposing equivalents. So you can somehow feel connected to the feet of your self-appointed constituents. Maybe hours you spend watching post-match pontificators amplify the thrill of being a witness and better your predictive aptitude for your squad. Future physical fitness. Sports go sports. Athletics are number 1. Participants are heroes. Go team, yeah! Sports go sports.
They were going to show a video of Roger Stone recorded by Danish filmmakers.
Just Google Roger Stone Monopoly Man.
Do you remember the old Batman TV series? He looks like the Penguin.
It's like a bad costume for A Christmas Carol.
Listen Monday through Friday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. for As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey.
And I know that firsthand because I was in that every year as a kid. Always a street urchin, never a Cratchit.
That needs to be the title of your autobiography. Always a street urchin, never a Cratchit.
As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey right here on the Shaw 101 FM and WAUK 540 AM.
This local musical interlude is brought to you by Max Inc. Radio. Dana Perry.
What am I fearing? Why do I worry at all? 'Cause I can feel that.
Listen to Max Inc. Radio every Saturday and Sunday, 6 p.m. to midnight. Download the podcast at maxincradio.com. We are local music.
You are listening to WAUK 540 AM Jackson, W266 DR Waukesha, always streaming on the
AP News, I'm Jackie Quinn. Some positive economic news today despite the bite of inflation. The U.S. economy grew at a 2.6% annual rate from July through September, snapping 2 straight quarters of contraction. But unemployment has blipped higher, and mortgage rates are now over 7%, as our Rita Foley reports.
7.08% to be precise. The last time the average rate on a 30-year mortgage was over 7% was April of 2002. Last year at this time, rates on a 30-year mortgage averaged just over 3%. So now many potential home buyers are holding off.
President Biden is focusing on the economic growth and not so much on inflation as he speaks at a microchip facility in Syracuse, New York today. Tomorrow he travels to the Senate battleground state of Pennsylvania. With Election Day less than 2 weeks away, efforts are already underway in courtrooms across the country to sow doubt over the outcome. Our Jennifer King reports.
Nationwide, more than 100 lawsuits have been filed concerning the upcoming midterm elections over issues like mail-in voting rules, voting registration, access for voters and partisan poll watchers, and questions about voting machines. It's the most litigation ever seen around a U.S. election and takes a more well-organized approach than the roughly 60 lawsuits filed by ill-prepared pro-Trump attorneys that were roundly rejected in 2020. The Republican National Committee has hired 37 lawyers in key states and says this time they have thousands of volunteers in place. Democrats have lawsuits underway as well. Jennifer King, Washington.
Police in Chicago are searching for the suspect in the shooting death of a 7-year-old boy last night. They believe it was a stray bullet that struck the child while he was washing his hands at his home. The World Health Organization is reporting the number of people infected with tuberculosis rose globally for the first time in years. This is AP News.
Hi, this is Joe Cordell with the law firm Cordell & Cordell. Divorce can be complicated, especially if children are involved. If you're a father and want to protect your role in your children's lives, remember Cordell & Cordell. We've helped men with matters like these for 30 years, and we'd love to help you.
Contact Cordell & Cordell to schedule an appointment with one of our firm's Atlanta area attorneys. 404-793-0000. Online at CordellCordell.com. 1 Glen Lake Parkway Northeast, Suite 975, Atlanta, Georgia 30328.
We tried Dynovite nutritional supplement, and after a couple of weeks, we noticed a big difference. Our little Gizmo's coat was shinier, and there was a lot less scratching and shedding.
My dog smelled and scratched constantly. We bathed and sprayed her, took her to the vet, but no results. Now, a little Dynovite in her food helps Bella keep her beautiful coat with no scratching or smell.
Happier, healthier with every bite. Over 1 million pets helped with Dynovite.
The Shaw 101 FM, Franklin's choice for news talk radio. Streaming 24/7 at WAUKradio.com.
The bakers of Country Hearth and Village Hearth breads are proud to support local education with Loaves for Learning, the program that makes it easy to earn money for your school. Enjoy Country Hearth and Village Hearth all-natural breads, buns, bagels, and more. Then save the UPC from the package for your school to collect and redeem. Each is worth 5 cents and can be used for books, computers, sports, music, whatever your school needs. Up to $10,000 a year. Learn more at loavesforlearning.com. Country Hearth and Village Hearth breads, baking our best for you.
I'm Pat Kreitlow from Up North News. On an earlier edition, we talked to 3 women, med students, about whether they're going to stay in Wisconsin to practice medicine.
All this Roe v. Wade stuff, and now OBGYN's hands are so tied. I don't want to go through 12 years of training to have some person that didn't do training tell me how to do my job.
It is not a binary choice, you're for or against abortion. It is a healthcare decision. We all have those stories, and people want to hear them.
Don't miss the real stories here on Up North News.
Maybe you need a more muscular voice on talk radio. Maybe you need Matt Flynn direct. But Moscow Mitch just said that if the Republicans win the 2022 elections, he will block any Supreme Court nominee Biden puts up. So word to Justice Breyer, you idiot, retire, get out of there, open it up so Biden can put in a Supreme Court appointment. Do it nicely, retire. We'll give you a gold watch, retire.
Matt Flynn Direct airs weekdays from 6 to 8 a.m.
Cut you down.
For Civic Media, I'm Jane Matnier with your headlines. Wisconsin needs more people moving here. A report by Forward Analytics says the state's working age population is expected to shrink by about 130,000 people within 8 years. Over the last decade, Wisconsin lost at least 106,000 people younger than the age of 26. The report found Wisconsin struggles to attract and retain young people. Research also shows Wisconsin loses more college graduates than it retains. From 2012 to 2020, the report found more than 460,000 families moved out of the state. Of those, over 2/3 moved to a state not bordering Wisconsin. A report commissioned by Clean Wisconsin and Renew Energy found it is possible to replace virtually all fossil fuels with clean energy sources using mostly existing technologies and without sacrificing reliability. You're listening to The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM.
Live programming for WAUK Radio 540 AM and 101 FM is produced right in the Shaw in beautiful downtown Waukesha, Wisconsin.
Bringing some sanity to the airwaves. The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin, Brey. So it was funny when Dr. Mike, I forgot which question it was for, but it was something about complaining in the workplace. And I said, in my mind, I said, funny you should bring that up because today is Cranky Coworkers Day.
Oh, isn't that nice?
Yes, there's even a day. There's even a day for that.
Who is this? Who sponsored that?
So I can tell you.
Oh, good.
When you go to nationaltoday.com, the history of Cranky Coworkers Day. So it was, we have Thomas and Ruth Roy to thank for the quirky holiday called Cranky Coworkers Day. The couple introduced the holiday as part of their holiday company, Wellcat Holidays. They have several such holidays to their name. In fact, there's even a National Slap Your Irritating Coworker Day, which was, we just missed that. That was October 23rd.
Oh, rats.
And National Grouch Day, which was October 15th. Missed that one too.
Wow.
While no one endorses violence, the day is meant to encourage you to poke fun at the serious and cranky moods of your coworkers by either becoming jokingly cranky yourself or just letting the coworkers be as cranky as they want. However, while you're at it, make sure that the fun isn't negatively impacting your work environment.
Well, that just killed the whole point of it then. Don't have too much fun. Okay.
So it was in the early 2000s. Wellcat Holidays create the Wellcat Holidays as a way to celebrate quirky holidays all year round. Research shows that in 2003, I don't know if this is surprising, that crankiness is bad for your health. Studies show that being in a constant cranky mood can negatively impact physical and mental health, not only for the cranky person, but also for their colleagues. And then what else is on this timeline? Around 2011, articles appear on safely dealing with the anger caused and felt at work without jeopardizing said job. And Fun at Work, as of May 2020, there was an article that was put out as Fun at Work helps increase productivity. And there you go. So, and you were so anti the foosball and ping pong tables. Supposedly it's a productivity enhancer.
I don't see how that helps. I really don't. Do balls have to be involved in order for us to have fun? Can't we do something without them?
Well, it was funny. I want to get back to the do's and don'ts of venting at work because I'm an external processor as far as some people, I think when they are working through something, they can kind of keep it to themselves and work it out. I am someone who I've gotten better because I think there's sometimes negative consequences to working out your issues by talking about them with everyone. And that goes to both for work, but also, I think the sometimes young person's issue of I'm having these problems in my romantic relationship. And then all of a sudden, all of your friends, or I don't know why, don't like your significant other. And maybe it's because you're constantly complaining about them.
And we've all done that.
And working out your issues with your friends, but not working out the good stuff with your friends.
Right.
And so their vision of him or her is not very positive. And so I do sometimes I need to like work through it and talk about it to get it better.
Sure.
But when it comes to doing that about work, you kind of have to, I don't want to say be smart about it, but be conscientious of it. How do you approach this? Because you've had ups and downs. I mean, it's working for 40 years. I would imagine that you didn't always like everywhere that you work, all the people you worked with.
That's very true. And I worked pretty closely with some people that I did not like. It's really challenging.
Yeah.
You have to focus on the final product as much as possible and what it is that you're hoping to do within this workspace. And just be conscientious, I guess, of people's moods around you.
Mm-hmm.
I was one of those, I've been that cranky employee. I've been that person. Yeah. And just as a heads up, Brooke and Kristin, if I ever get really, really deathly quiet, be really, really careful.
So it's the opposite. It's when you're quietest is when you're the most upset.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah, I tend to be. Yeah, then I'm really, really, really angry.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah. And I'll stew on that for a couple of days, and then all of a sudden there might be a big boom. So, which is not healthy either. There's got to be a happy medium somewhere. But I guess one thing I want to add, having been that cranky person, sometimes it is because you're in a place where you are not happy. It's not about not being happy with your coworkers. It's not respecting or liking your coworkers. It is being so unhappy with where you are.
Yeah.
You know, that is the source of your misery.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think are you frustrated with the situation, or is there something bigger that's actually not solvable?
Well, and sometimes, if you're in the middle of it and you can't fix it, that's just frustration on top of frustration. But if you're at that point, it's a good time to start looking around, because you do not have to stay. Hopefully, you do not have to stay in a toxic place.
Yeah.
Well,
and to a certain extent, I think, like I was saying, as far as being an external processor, that productive venting can play an important role as far as processing and managing your feelings in the workplace or even your relationships. But it's also knowing the operative word there being productive.
Yeah.
And instead of, because it's also easy, I think, sometimes to pile on. Once you start complaining about something at work or someone at work with that, there's a great sketch with two comedic actresses, one of whom is the actress from the AT&T commercials, cute young, like pixie looking girl. And then the other actress is Akilah Hughes, who's a comedian writer. And I think it came out right before we all went inside, because it couldn't have happened they couldn't have filmed this while we were during like the beginning of
lockdowns.
COVID, during lockdowns. But it's these two coworkers, both women, and they're in the kitchen, a office looking kitchen.
Yeah,
together.
kitchenette.
And one of them's new, and they're kind of dancing around the issue. And they say, had a meeting with Dale. Like, oh, Dale.
How'd that go? And
just the eyes of waiting to see if they can both bond over how much they hate Dale. And then they make the connection, and the whole sketch breaks out into like song and dance moves about like just like crapping all over Dale. And because I feel like most of us who worked for any like length of time, you have that one friend at the office who you sneak off to the corner and complain about XYZ thing together.
You share things.
Yes. And so that was I'll find that, and maybe we can play part of it, because it was, I remember watching that, and especially having worked in Tech Bro Central in San Francisco, I had my couple still to this day work wives who that was a lot of our relationship.
And you saved each other, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
You saved each other. There is value in bonding, I guess, against the bad.
Yeah.
If you're in a tough work situation or it's an unhappy place, at least you have that commonality amongst you. I understand you don't want to pile on and on and on, because that just gets more depressing, but that is a thing on which people bond.
That is a thing of which people bond. Absolutely. And so some of the advice, though, I think, is if you're going to do this over chat, just make sure, because with like on Slack or Google Chats or whatever messaging device your company uses to communicate, they have access to all of that.
Yeah, don't be talking about Dale.
Yeah, all of the stuff that you write in your work email or your work Slack their bosses can sign in and see that. But also you sometimes can accidentally text or ping the wrong person.
That's happened, I understand.
That's happened to me.
Oh, has it really?
Well, to be fair, it was someone who had already, it was my boss who had quit and left the company.
Okay.
And I was complaining about something. I was complaining about him, and I accidentally texted it to him. And he wasn't my boss anymore, so it was kind of a dodge. But I remember being like, oh God.
Well, here's your goodbye note.
So keep your chats safe.
Yes.
And I think also the other advice is pick your person wisely. Don't, because sometimes just because you bonded over that first complaining doesn't mean that they don't have a big mouth and they're going to go tell everyone what you said.
Yep.
But I think the better one is write it down. The process, and this is not just for work. This is the, like, write your letter that you never send, or journal, or get it out.
Super useful.
But not, you don't necessarily need to say it, but at least as a way to process your feelings. You can also take a walk. Although this was a point of, this was the same company, but I was the boss in this situation. And one of my direct reports was pretty uptight, and she would go for a cigarette break.
Just to take a breath?
Yeah. And I remember, and which I'm not judging, but I remember at one point we had a conflict. And so we were sitting down and trying to work through it with one of our HR people. And she was like, well, just so you know, smoking cigarettes spikes your cortisol. And so even if you think it's, you're using it as a de-stressor and you think that it's de-stressing you, how it's actually affecting your hormones is it's
the opposite.
It's the opposite.
Yeah.
So she had to remind this person about that. So going for a walk, I'm not going to, if you choose to smoke a cigarette, I would never say that I haven't been in that situation, but just know that may not be giving the effect that you think it is.
Sure.
But I thought this was interesting. So at Trello, which is a company that they do, like, it's a productivity tool, and then for teams, as far as using different boards and like a project management tool, you can assign things to people. But they have, at their weekly team meetings, they have an extra special agenda item called the weekly woe, which people get by open floor to vent about whatever hurdles they're facing. I don't think you can complain about the other person, but as far as something that's happening in the company
or the office,
or even personal, to kind of air that and give that space. And they talked about it, so clearly it's working, because if it was something that's working, they probably wouldn't write a whole blog post about it. But I thought that was interesting.
You know who's going to get up every week? It's Dale.
Dale. For sure, Dale.
Dale's going to be the one who's going to be up there griping for 5 minutes.
It's like
every week.
Dale. It's like the light flashes for the comedians.
Yes.
Of like, Dale, you've hit your 5 minutes. Wrap it up. Wrap it up. Get off the stage. And you can bring the hook out and just take them off. All right. Well, we're going to take a break. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Hi, everyone. Listen to my show, The Matt McNeil Show, weekday afternoons at 3 p.m. on the Shaw 101. 1 hour every weekday where we'll talk all sorts of things like politics, especially with what's going on this election season, plus a lot of other things, too. Parenting, the arts, religion, music, beer. If it matters to Wisconsin and Minnesota, we'll talk about it. Phone calls are welcome at 952-946-6205. For 1 hour each day, come see the Train Chimp, The Matt McNeil Show, with the aggressive progressive Matt McNeil, 3 p.m. weekday afternoons right here on the Shaw 101.
President Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election.
Collectively, Republicans got 1.661 million votes, 51,000 more votes than Trump got.
He exhausted his cases. He exhausted the court challenges.
All the Republicans voted for Trump the way they voted for the assembly candidates. He would have won.
It was not rigged. It was not stolen. Donald Trump lost the election. Joe Biden won the election. It's really clear.
This message was paid for by the People for People Corporation. Donate online at p4ppc.org.
My husband said to give our house more curb appeal. So I started painting. Then I went on Google and looked up the meaning of curb appeal. It said to make it more nicer. So I called Replacement Window Center, and they put in new replacement windows.
Get free installation and 0% financing for 18 months. Free installation and 0% financing. Hurry, call now.
Replacement Window Center. Our name says it all.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Partly cloudy skies this afternoon with highs around 54.
Winds out of the southeast, 5 to 10 miles an hour. Partly cloudy again tonight, lows around 36. Mainly sunny skies and calm tomorrow. High temperatures reach up to 57. Dry with temps a bit above average Saturday and Sunday, and highs in the upper 50s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 50 degrees.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin, Brey. I think this is your first time being on camera.
I think so.
Social media manager Brooke has joined us for this segment because I've bookmarked this weeks ago. When did this article? Yeah, this has been since the end of September. Axios did a study or wrote an article about a study of Gen Z's favorite brands revealed. And I feel like I remember these articles coming out when millennials were the generation, the 18 to 29 age group or the younger age group. And like, what do they want? They're trying to figure them out. How do we sell them stuff? Blah, blah, blah. And now Gen Z, because we're older, most of the oldest millennials are 41 now. So we're no longer those dang millennials don't want to work. It's you guys. And so I have heard the struggles of the ad world in trying to sell you stuff is harder than it's ever been for any generation before you, because even when you think about TikTok and the influencer marketing of these people who you like and you trust and you like the content that they make, as soon as you realize it's an ad, you're not like, you're like, we're not interested. So even the idea of paying influencers to peddle stuff isn't working the way that it has before on your generation. Does that feel true?
Yeah, no, it definitely does. Like, I feel like if I'm watching someone on TikTok and they're just like, look at all these clothes I got, I'm like more willing to watch it. But if someone's like, this is sponsored by, I'm like, I don't care. And I just like keep scrolling. I don't know why. I honestly have no idea why. I feel like
you don't
it's
be
just
sold to.
And I think it like lacks like, I'd rather watch someone who's like actually excited about this stuff they got, and I might also like it, rather than someone's like, I'm getting paid to do this, so just watch this, please.
Okay. All right. So this is what we're going to do. Since we're 3 different generations, I will say a brand name, and I guess we'll on a scale of 1 to 5. So 1 is not favorable, 5 being very favorable,
Okay.
and in between. And so, all right, Instagram.
3.5.
A 1.
I would say I'm also a 3.5. But apparently in this study, Gen Z adults, 73% very favorable. So they're still liking Instagram.
Yeah.
Spotify.
5.
1.
I would say I'm a 3 on Spotify. That's same. 70% of Gen Z is favorable with Spotify. TikTok.
5.
2.
4. Cash App.
Oh, 5.
What?
Yes, I knew that was going to happen. Cash App is a really interesting thing because it's also, Cash App is like Venmo, where it's an app where it's a payment app, but there's something specific about Cash App where you don't need to necessarily have a bank account. Is that true?
Mm-hmm.
And so there's also the thing with Cash App that it's a very racialized app, that they're because more in brown and black communities, there's sometimes the less likelihood that they're going to have a bank account. And so their ability to share money back and forth using Cash App versus Venmo, that it's much more popular in the black community than us white folks.
Yeah.
So I thought I remember reading an article about that. I thought it was really interesting. All right. Snapchat.
1. -1.
0.
0. I'm also 1. I don't use Snapchat. Apple Pay.
3. I just started using it. I feel like an old person saying, I was like, how do you guys use this? And my friends are like, just put your bank account. I was like, I don't get it. But it's not as fun as Cash
Apple
App.
Pay, Jane?
Not a chance.
I also don't use Apple Pay. Discord?
I don't even know what that is.
Neither do I.
I think
is that like a?
I think it's like I don't know. These next one I don't know what it is either. Is Trolli the candy?
Oh, like the gummy worms.
That's a 5 for me.
5, absolutely.
Do you know what they are?
What, are we looking at gummy worms?
No. I think it's just the buying of the gummy. It's like a new version of Haribo gummy bears. I'll bring you some.
Okay.
I'll bring you some.
Okay.
Shein.
Ooh. I hate answering this. Ethically, 1, but when it comes to buying cheap clothes, 5. It's horrible.
Do you know what Shein is?
I do. I've seen the ads.
So
and they do have really cute stuff.
And I forever it was just assumed that the quality was going to be crap, and so I never bought it. And then I find one of my friends was like, honestly, it's very hit or miss. But she's like, sometimes I'll order stuff and I keep everything.
Yeah.
And so I made my first order this summer, and there was a lot of stuff that worked and was cute. And so then I made another big order, and then I started seeing all of the stories as far as how horrendously they treat. Basically, it's like slave labor.
Yeah.
Of how they're treating. It's a Chinese company, and the predominantly women who are making the clothes. There's more and more stories coming out as far as how bad the conditions are, and so now ethically, I feel like I can't, especially because I'm on the radio, so it's not like I need a bunch of cute clothes anymore, anyways. All right, and then the last one was Twitch.
1. Isn't that like video game users?
I think it's like yeah. There's something about being able to stream live.
Yeah,
I'm also don't understand it. Jane?
Oh, I'm a total 5.
Total 5.
Yeah, I'm a big gamer. You know that.
So all of these that I just listed it was basically somewhere between a 20 to 40 point difference between Gen Z adults preferring those apps compared to all US adults. And so I don't know what it is about them, but I guess what detracts you, what brands that weren't on that list do you feel like you associate with?
Ooh, that aren't on the list. See, this is my thing. Like, when I'm like buying stuff, I'm not really thinking about the brand. I'm just like, I like that. Oh, it's cheap. I want that.
Okay.
And I'm a big thrifter too. So I'm like, I don't really care. So I'm just like, oh, that's cute. That's cute. Okay. This seems like it's fine.
So you don't have like brand loyalty to anything?
Not really.
There's no brands that when you think about it, like sparks joy.
No, like there are brands that I wish I could afford.
Sure.
But like things that I buy now, not really. Like I'm loyal to Target. I love Target a lot. I go there like too much. I don't know if that's brand loyalty or not.
Target, if you're listening, we're always sponsors.
Yeah. Do you have any brand loyalty?
No, but I have brand. There are a lot of more places that I won't shop than I will shop.
All right, that's fair. That's fair. All right. Well, we finally played. It wasn't really a game, but it was interesting to get your viewpoint. All right. When we come back, Mr. Dan Schaefer will be here. Stick with us. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
The Shaw 101 FM, your fix for progressive talk. From Muskego to Pewaukee, always streaming at WAUKradio.com.
From the kennel to the coop, whatever the season, Fleet Farm has everything to keep your animals happy and healthy. From training your pup to sit season, to mastering those retrieval skills season. From clipping your horse for competition season, to keeping the backyard birds well-fed season. And of course, loving your pets like family season. There's a reason people say, if Fleet Farm doesn't have it, you don't need it. Because we have it all. Fleet Farm, built for real life.
Hey everybody, I'm Joel Clayfish, and I've got a new show on WAUK 540 AM 101 FM The Shaw. It's called Raised in the Shaw with Joel Clayfish. I was born and raised in Waukesha, and you wouldn't believe what a springboard that is for a crazy exciting life. We'll talk provider lifestyle, hunting, fishing, and of course, cooking from field to table because food's my favorite dish. We'll have local and national celebrity guests. Join us at 7 Thursdays for Raised in the Shaw.
I'm Ed Donahue with an AP News Minute. A criminal investigation looking into the police response to the Uvalde school massacre in Texas is expected to be finished by the end of the year. 19 children and 2 teachers were killed at Robb Elementary in May. At a public meeting in Austin, Colonel Steve McCraw, the head of the Texas Department of Public Safety, offered no indication whether any of the nearly 400 officers who waited more than 70 minutes before confronting the gunman would face charges. Brett Cross's son was killed. He was at the meeting.
It was 77 minutes that 91 of y'all's officers waited outside while our children were slaughtered. One of your officers has been fired. One.
McCraw insists his department did not fail the community. Brett Cross pointed out McCraw had earlier said if he thought there was any culpability with the Department of Public Safety, he would resign.
Well, Steve, the time is now. If you're a man of your word, you'll resign.
Little new information was released at the meeting. I'm Ed Donahue.
Hi, this is Joe Cordell with the law firm Cordell & Cordell. Divorce can be complicated, especially if children are involved. If you're a father and want to protect your role in your children's lives, remember Cordell & Cordell. We've helped men with matters like these for 30 years, and we'd love to help you.
Contact Cordell & Cordell to schedule an appointment with one of our firm's Atlanta area attorneys. 404-793-0000. Online at cordellcordell.com.
Hello, sir. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah.
My computer won't load Zoom, so I'm on my phone. Hopefully
What kind of computer do you have?
I have a Mac. My live. I'm not live. It's a piece of shit.
You're live technically on the live stream, but not on the radio.
Well, I'm gonna take it Office Space style, and just take a baseball bat to it when I finally get a chance to get a new computer.
Great.
It's the bane of my existence.
Cool. All right. Well, we are got like a minute.
For Civic Media,
and I
I'm
already told
Luke
you what
Mathers
we're
with your
talking about,
headlines.
so.
Republican gubernatorial candidate Tim Michels has floated the idea of implementing a flat tax in Wisconsin if elected governor. Michels has provided few details on his tax plan, but stated he would like to get the flat rate under 5%, and he would not want to raise taxes on anyone. Wisconsin's nonpartisan Legislative Fiscal Bureau prepared a new analysis that shows a flat tax would need to be 5.22% to not require significant spending cuts in the state. At that rate, 73% of Wisconsin tax filers would see an increase in their taxes, and the top earners in the state would see a significant decrease in the amount of tax owed, including for Michels himself. A flat rate that doesn't raise anyone's taxes would need to be set at 3.45%. According to economists, that rate would reduce state revenue by $5.59 billion in the first year and $3.855 billion every year after that. You're listening to the Shaw 101 FM WAUK 540 AM.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin, Brey. Our friend of the show, Dan Schaefer, is here. He is a longtime Milwaukee journalist and the founder of the Recombobulation Area, a weekly opinion column and online publication covering news and politics in Milwaukee and Wisconsin. Welcome back, Dan.
Hey, Kristin. Hi, Jane. How you guys doing?
We're surviving. How are you doing?
Maintaining, I think is the word I'm going with.
Yeah. So you got any good news for us right
now? The Bucks are 3-0.
Hey!
They beat the Nets last night. Giannis dropped another 40-point game, and they're going to go undefeated. First ever 82-0 season in NBA history. They're on
Make
pace for
history. Absolutely. Well, I definitely want to talk about that at the end of the segment, unless you really want to. I saw your tweet that you were going to just hijack this and spend all 30 minutes talking about Giannis. So we can do that, but
we could,
but then I have to then I got to rearrange a couple of things. So just let me know what you're going to
do. So at the last time you were on here, we talked about your Herculean effort and also success of covering all the different legislative races. And so has there been any interesting developments, I think that was 3 weeks ago, since we last talked to you with any of the races?
Yeah, I think it's, we're headed toward the home stretch, and I think everything's getting really tight with a lot of these races. And I think the likelihood of a supermajority is, I think people are starting to realize that this is a real chance that Republicans could gain a supermajority, 2/3 supermajority in a 50-50 state. So I think, one of the sources of information that I used to piece together that preview was a page called CAnalysis. And what they do is they look at state legislative races across the country and make projections on those. And I used their analysis in my preview 2 years ago, and I used their analysis, among other pieces of analysis, in this preview this year. And they updated a couple races for Wisconsin, for the state legislature. And, some of I'd say 3 of the races that were, favorites for Democrats, but still in competitive territory, shifted to the right a little bit. So I think we're starting to see some spending from Republicans seeing the opportunity to pick up the supermajority and really investing in some of those races. So I think the 54th district in Oshkosh, the 45th district in Beloit, and the 71st district in Stevens Point, all the projections all shifted to the right. That 54th district in Oshkosh is now in toss-up territory. So if Republicans win the 3 races they were favored to flip, along with a toss-up in Western Wisconsin and now a toss-up in Oshkosh, they could reach that supermajority with those 5 seats. And of course, assuming that they would be able to protect all of the seats that they are up for. No sure thing there either.
Yeah.
So I think that's where we're at. I think there's a 50-50 shot that the Republicans get a supermajority in the state legislature.
Now, because it's a real, you and I joked yesterday that the most Wisconsin thing ever would be to have Tony Evers win and then the legislature also get the supermajority. And what I think is also interesting, what I literally just popped up in my brain, is what happens if they get a supermajority and Michaels wins? And so the ability, because I was at the Journal Sentinel yesterday filming next week's video, and one of the journalists there joked about Mike, because he was predicting that he thinks Michaels is going to win. And I said, well, do you think he's going to like the job? He goes, no, absolutely not. Because he's going to have to realize that Robin Voss is going to tell him what to do. That's who he's responding to. And so that's also a weird component of this, is that even the situation where the Republicans will have the legislature and the governor's office, that there still could be headbutting that happens there, that the legislature and i.e. Robin Voss is not just our shadow governor, he's our actual governor.
Exactly. I think that's right. I think that's the right way to characterize it, because the legislature in Wisconsin is so powerful.
Yeah.
And they have continued to consolidate power, like 4 years ago with the lame duck session, all sorts of different ways over the last decade. And I think, Michaels has said in many ways that he's just I'll sign what the legislature brings me. I'm going to sit down with the legislature on this. Part of that is him not committing to any position so that he can never get nailed down.
We're going to sit down. We're going to figure it out. We're going to get smart people. We're going to figure it out.
Yeah. He's playing this greased pig act where you can never actually catch him on any position. But I think, if Michaels were to win, I think that would signify a real wave election. For Republicans, they would probably get the supermajority in such a scenario. But I think in such a scenario, Robin Voss would be more powerful than Governor Tim Michaels. So I think that's why I think the supermajority is almost more important than the governor's race, because you'd essentially be handing the steering wheel over to Robin Voss and the increasingly erratic and dangerous Republican-controlled Wisconsin state legislature.
Dan, I don't understand why it's not being pounded over and over and over again that if the Republicans get a supermajority and can override all of Governor Evers' vetoes, we will have permitless concealed carry in Wisconsin, which the vast majority of residents do not want. We will have guns allowed in cars at schools, which, again, the vast majority of state residents don't want. Why isn't that message should just be screamed from the rooftops until November 8th?
Yeah, Tony Evers vetoed more than 100 bills that this legislature brought forward, and if they were to reach that supermajority threshold, they would be able to override and enact those policies. And I think, so many of those bills that were passed in that last session were these culture war bills that were kind of performative passed and saying, to do so, to say that like, hey, Tony Evers is, against this, against that, whatever. They're just trying to box him in and use those bills knowing that they would get vetoed as a campaign issue. But I think, we're really going to have to revisit and look into what those bills were. Like you mentioned, the permitless carry, all sorts of different legislation that could be brought forth on abortion, They passed a bill that would break up Milwaukee public schools. So I think, there's a lot of really dangerous policies. And I think voting rights, I think, is at the center of that too, because, whether it's getting rid of the Wisconsin Elections Commission or, getting rid of the state's ability to cast votes based on the popular vote. Like, there's a lot of dangerous stuff that they passed that Evers vetoed. And Evers really played his role well in being the goalie that he needed to be for these bills in the last session and throughout the last 4 years. But, it's a frightening and dangerous and uncertain future that Wisconsin would have with a Republican supermajority in the state legislature.
Because I think there's something to be said as far as it's one thing for policy around guns and schools and stuff like that. It's like, all right, you guys think your policies can fix it? And you won the election, fine. But the thing that's scarier to me is the fact that of things that they would change about our election so that they never lose again. So that even if the policies that they pass and the ideas that they try, which if they were to win in a fair election, elections have consequences. Like these are your ideas, whether you're pushing school choice and voucher schools and everything like that. And if it doesn't work, then the opportunity for voters to say, hey, that didn't work, let's try these other ideas and these other politicians. But if they pass laws that mean they will never lose,
right? Well, I think
then we're just stuck. And I don't know if people get that.
That Republicans have acted over the last year is almost like they're guiding. What's guiding them is that Democrats should not be allowed to govern. It's just what it feels like, because that's what they did with the lame duck bills, stripping away powers from a Democratic governor and attorney general. They, in the last session of all of the bills that Democrats introduced, less than 2% of them even got a public hearing, much less, actually made it to the finish line. So you're just really, at one point, does that not at what point is that no longer representative government? At what point is that no longer democracy? Like, I think that is, the real danger of what might happen with a supermajority, because what is this state then if it's governed by an entrenched supermajority that is unaccountable to anyone? I think that's the potential future we're looking at.
I saw something this morning that says, the Wisconsin GOP doesn't want to govern; they want to rule.
Yeah,
and so but there is a lot of messaging out there, and there's people who just like that is, and I don't know what. For me, it's hard to sometimes put myself in the shoes of someone who that messaging is working on them. But what in these last weeks, as far as what do you think the messaging should be from a Democratic candidate's position to sway voters, motivate voters? Like, what is the strategy as we go into less than 2 weeks?
Yeah, I think we can overthink these messaging and strategy conversations in a little bit. And I think there's an example of something that's kind of flying in the face of this messaging strategy consultant speak that is so prevalent on the Democratic side of things these days. And I'll keep, this is between me and you and your listening audience here, but I'm working
all 12 of them.
Working on a big, long feature story on the campaign being run by Lou Ann Bird.
Bird is the word.
In the 84th Assembly District in the southwest suburbs in Milwaukee County. And I think she is running a remarkably unconventional, positive, hopeful campaign. And I think, I saw you last week at the Bird Songs concert. That was just an unbelievably uplifting, hopeful event. And I think that is part of what has been missing, I think, from the Democratic side of things, and just an authenticity and authenticity and a hopefulness and a willingness to want to get in and solve the problems and have the conversation. So I spent some time with Lou Ann over the last couple weeks here. Got to go out with her while she was canvassing, and I think her campaign is right at the center of the debate about where about whether or not the Republicans will gain that supermajority that we've been talking about. I think her seat that she's running for, an open seat, is right at the center of this conversation, and she is running a remarkably unconventional campaign to win it. And I think it's a real bellwether area and a real test case for how I think campaigns could be kind of rebuilt and reimagined going forward for the left in Wisconsin.
But that's also about her as a candidate.
Yeah.
Right. And
But
so
I think
some of
that-
this also comes back to recruiting people and a bench of good people who want to run, who are authentic. And that is as much the bigger party strategy. I imagine that has to kind of be reevaluated, because it's not just that, Alec, her campaign manager, is this savant. It's also that she is an incredibly good candidate, and it's hard to teach that, right?
Yeah, but I think it's just about being an authentic and someone. If you're running for public office, you're running to try and do something better. Trying to make your community, your state, your whatever, a better place. And and I think that's the campaign Lou Ann Bird is running. And I think she has her opponent is Bob Donovan, who is not exactly someone with a record that you would not be able to, say, run a negative campaign against in the Milwaukee suburbs. But she doesn't talk about Donovan at all. Like, did you hear Donovan's name mentioned a single time at that Birdsongs concert last week?
No.
She doesn't mention Donovan at all. She doesn't really mention him on doors either. She'll, when it comes up, she'll be like, "Yep, I'm running against Bob Donovan." But it's not about highlighting a negative of somebody with a long record. It's about, it's been about bringing some positivity to the race and bringing some hope and some, her campaign theme is choose civility.
Yeah.
Would any consultant have chosen that for this year? No, it's just Lou Ann being Lou Ann. And I think that's what we need from candidates.
All right, when we come back, we're going to talk about what is a flat tax and the Bucks. Dan Schaefer's our guest. Stick with us. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Early voting is open now and through November 4th at your city, town, or village hall. Go to myvote.wi.gov for details. Paid for by Blue Sky Waukesha.
Multi-millionaire Senator Ron Johnson won't stop trying to cut our Social Security. But you don't have to take my word for it. He just keeps saying it. Talking about benefit cuts.
Do you need to reduce benefits, maybe on a means-tested basis?
Or forcing seniors to work longer.
But you have to factor that in the programs, probably in terms of raising retirement ages.
And if that wasn't scary enough, now he's saying Social Security shouldn't even be guaranteed. And if politicians in Washington didn't renew it every year, it should end. I guess ending Social Security isn't a big deal if you're as rich as Senator Ron Johnson. But for the rest of us seniors, it's a matter of life and death, literally. Paid for by AFT Solidarity, www.aft.org, and not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. AFT Solidarity is responsible for the content of this advertising.
I love this song! I love nachos.
Loving everything? You might be buzzed.
You know what I'd love? A ride when it's time to head out.
If you see a buzz warning sign, call for a ride when it's time to go home. Buzz driving is drunk driving. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Partly cloudy skies this afternoon with highs around 54. Southeasterly winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Partly cloudy tonight, lows around 36. Daytime highs approaching 57. Tomorrow, mainly sunny skies and calm. Dry with temperatures a bit above average Saturday and Sunday, and highs in the upper 50s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 50 degrees.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin, Brey. Our guest this half hour is Dan Schaefer. And that song just makes me want to skip over the flat tax and just talk about the Bucks with you. But we could also, so we could either have you back and we could talk about flat tax and Tim Michael's proposal, or we could quickly touch on why that is, how that would only help some people and hurt more people. Where do you want to go?
We can hit we'll talk quickly about the flat tax.
Okay.
Because I think it's kind of the story of the day that we're seeing today, because we had this new analysis from the nonpartisan Legislative Fiscal Bureau. Michaels he doesn't have a lot of really concrete, definitive policy ideas, but has signaled support for a flat tax. And this flat tax in a piece at the Recombobulation Area written by Marquette professors Phil Rocco and Sam Harshner. You can see their analysis of it, which shows, just exactly how this would redistribute income in Wisconsin and give raise taxes. I'm gonna quote the piece here. The LFB projects that some 2.35 million Wisconsin taxpayers, or 72.5% of all filers, would see their taxes go up by $249 per year on average. And by contrast, only 2% of filers would see their taxes go down. And those would be at the very far end of the wealth spectrum that we have here in Wisconsin.
Because as of right now, we have a progressive income tax.
Right.
Where depending on the percentage of your income that you pay goes up as you make more money. So people who are making, let's say, less than $50,000 a year pay a lower percentage of their income to their income taxes versus someone who's making over $500,000. But a flat tax would be that everyone's paying the same percentage of their income, correct?
Mm-hmm. Right. So the analysis used a 5.22% flat tax to get into it. There's also, there was a suggestion that Michael said he wanted to have a flat tax, but as long as it didn't raise taxes on people at the lower end of the income scale. Well, that would
isn't possible.
So Phil and Sam got into that as well, and it would be, there's a possibility to it, and you'd have a much lower tax level for everybody, but that would mean just an absolute major cut to services across the board. Like it would cut billions of dollars from the state budget to do things that way. And that would obviously have an impact on everything from education to shared revenue. I mean, it's like basically the entire shared revenue budget being eliminated if you were to go to a flat tax that low, which is not great, Kristin. I think we should probably increase shared revenue instead of installing a ridiculous tax structure to benefit the wealthy and cut state services. I don't know.
Because without getting into it too deeply, because I do want to talk about the Bucks, but because then there's also a proposal that was introduced this year or last year. There's always that group of people who are pushing no income tax and increasing sales tax. So would at least a flat tax be better than no income tax?
It's just like you're arguing different versions of bad income tax. Like when I lived in Seattle, they don't have a state income tax in the state of Washington, which might surprise a lot of people given that it's a democratic state that has kind of like this, a little bit of a libertarian edge to it sometimes. Not a surprise why so many big companies have their headquarters there either. So they don't have to pay state income tax, but it's also like there's so many people there that realize that this is not a good structure.
Oh, really?
And they want to introduce an income tax because they have really high sales taxes and it really fluctuates, and they have to vote on tax levies for different projects all the time, and they're always kind of in a bind that way. So like having a state income tax would really I don't know, it would help fund a lot of state services, So.
Yes, exactly. And I don't want to get into it today, but I'm always interested in this because everything's a trade-off ultimately. And I think there's sometimes on the surface of, income taxes suck, blah. But it's like, this has to either you don't get a service or something just disappears, or it's going to come out of your paycheck somewhere else because things cost money. But anyways, to wrap things up, how are you feeling about the Bucks being 3-0?
It's great. I'm enjoying it. It's the perfect. We needed this distraction of just watching Giannis dunk in everyone's face for 40 minutes a night, every couple of days, right? Like this is the distraction we needed right now.
Absolutely. Well, it's funny because actually, where do you get your chronological, like when you're looking for like what happened today in Wisconsin news? Is there somewhere you go that actually lists it chronologically?
No. Well,
because I use your Twitter feed usually. I'm like, what happened today? I'll go check out what Dan was tweeting about. So I was checking yesterday, and I found some of the new articles on the recombobulation area and the CNN analysis that you mentioned earlier. And then I just saw 15 texts and tweets in a row about the Bucks.
I bet I'm one of the only people on Twitter who ever gets the criticism of stick to politics. Because I think a lot of people follow me for my political reporting and opinion columns and all of that. And then all of a sudden the Bucks game comes on and I'm tweeting like weird details about Grayson Allen's shooting percentage or something like that. I will get some people jump into my mentions and be like, can you stick to politics? I don't care about the Milwaukee Bucks.
This is not why I followed you, man. I followed you because you had a New York Times opinion that column I really liked.
Yeah. That's right.
But so far so good. I mean, obviously the Nets are still pretty stacked, right? So was it a surprise that we beat them?
Nah, Giannis has their number now. He's been amazing against them lately, and they don't have a lot of rim protection, paint defense, that kind of thing. And Giannis is just going to feast inside the lane and those kind of things. I'll tell you the guy that has really impressed me so far this year. Brook Lopez. Brook Lopez looks amazing so far.
All right.
He had
the back's all healed.
He looks amazing. He had 6 blocks last night. He's just walling off the rim from everybody coming at. Like he obviously missed 70 games last year, and the Bucks defense suffered is because of it. Now the defense looks amazing, and Brook looks amazing. So that's awesome.
Who's still hurt right now?
Middleton's still hurt, and Connaughton's still hurt.
Okay. So we're 3. Good start despite having both of them hurt right now.
Yeah, and a good start playing a couple Eastern Conference rivals, beating Philly, beating Brooklyn. Gotta love that.
Yeah. All right. Well, Dan Schaefer, thank you as always for joining us. We'll have to have you back next week because we are in crunch time. And so thank you for your work and your analysis and your friendship. Aww.
Yeah, thank you as well. Thanks for having me on. And for your listeners who don't subscribe, now is a great time to subscribe to the Recombobulation Area, because you are going to be getting a big magazine cover story style feature story from me on Luann Byrd's campaign. So
I'm so excited. All right. Thank you so much, Dan Schaefer. Stick with us. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about health tech for women. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Superstar in the NBA, the forwards, the centers, and all the guards, the ones you see on the bubblegum cards. Me and homeboy would go 1-on-1, cause playing the game is a lot of fun. Sit by the TV and watch them all, cause Curtis Blow is rapping basketball.
Rank Seed has been breeding better seeds for generations. Each year, Rank invests tens of millions of dollars to support DNA-level breeding and new trait development. This dedication to research has resulted in numerous insect-resistant, herbicide, and drought-tolerant traits in our lineup. Rank Seed utilizes the latest technologies, including robotics and color sorters, to ensure the highest germination and the best quality of seed, tirelessly striving to better serve our farmers. From research to results, Rank Seed is rooted in technology.
Conservative Talk Radio, they don't want to hear your opinion. They want to give you your opinion. They've done a good job. There's a way out. You can escape. Just turn on 540 AM WAUK, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m., Monday through Friday. And we can help you get out. We can teach you to think again.
Catch the Earl Ingram Show weekdays from 8 to 11 a.m. here on the Shaw 101 FM and WAUK 540 AM.
You are listening to WAUK 540 AM Jackson, W266 DR Waukesha, always streaming on the
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. The head of the Texas Department of Public Safety says a criminal investigation into the police response to the Uvalde school massacre will be completed by the end of the year. Victims' families are upset with the pace of the investigation. They would like the department's leader, Colonel Steve McCraw, to resign. Brett Cross's son was one of the 19 students killed.
It was 77 minutes that 91 of y'all's officers waited outside while our children were slaughtered. One of your officers has been fired. One.
McCraw insists his department did not fail the community. Police in Chicago say a 7-year-old boy was killed by a stray bullet while washing his hands in the bathroom of his family's home. Detectives are examining private video footage from the area in hopes of identifying a suspect. President Biden's chief of staff has been warned for retweeting a political message on his government Twitter account. The AP's Sagar Magani has the story.
The Office of Special Counsel says Ron Klain violated the Hatch Act, which bans government officials from using their official roles to influence elections. A conservative group led by Trump advisor Stephen Miller had complained about a retweet in May. The Office of Special Counsel said last year Miller and several other Trump officials repeatedly violated the Hatch Act with Trump's approval. Biden spokeswoman Karine Jean-Pierre often cites that law in deflecting political questions, noting earlier this week,
I have to be careful of what I say because we do respect the Hatch Act here in this administration.
Sagar Magani, Washington.
After 2 straight quarters of contraction, the government says the economy grew 2.6% from July through September. Meantime, the Dow is higher, other indexes are lower. The World Health Organization says the number of people infected with tuberculosis, including the kind resistant to drugs, rose globally for the first time in years. This is AP News.
Hi, this is Joe Cordell with the law firm Cordell & Cordell.
Hi. Hello. It's been so long. I know.
So wait, are you in Chicago?
I am.
So we're really close. I'm in Milwaukee.
I know. I was thinking that too. And, I just went to Madison for the Wisconsin-Illinois game, which was very fun.
Of course. And oh my God, that's so funny. When I saw that picture of you and Christina together, I was like, oh man, that is wild. And then she was like, Alyssa should come on. And I was like, you're totally right. This is so
good.
And I mentioned it.
And I was like, I haven't seen her. I'm like, I haven't seen Cassie in so long in our DC life. I was just talking to somebody about that life. It was so wonderful.
That was a very fun, intoxicated semester for me. And so, there's Chrissy. But this will be fun. So yeah,
The Shaw
as she
101
joins,
FM.
I'll let you know what the breakdown is for this segment. And that's totally fine that you have to jump. She's going to stay on, but yeah, totally understandable. And so,
I'm so sorry. I had this for a half hour, so I hope I didn't miss anything.
No, I think I said, I don't know.
Feels like it was a long
Honestly,
week.
hi. The doing a 3-hour radio show every day is a lot of work, and there's a lot of different emails, and so it was probably something I said and then thought I said and didn't actually write. So when we get started at like 3 minutes, we'll go until 1:18. So 11:18 for you, Chrissy. And then we'll have a 2-minute break, and then we'll come back and have it 8 minutes, and then Alyssa, you can jump off then, and Chrissy can stay on. And then Kristin, when we come back, we'll still have like another 15-ish minutes. And so I have some questions based on the different articles that we talked about, but it also can kind of be free-flowing.
Cool.
Sound
Okay.
good? All right.
Yay. We're excited. Go team go. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound good. Chrissy, you sound good too.
Perfect.
Aho, this is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake. On our show, we talk about Native issues like treaty violations, protecting the water, and COVID in our Native communities. Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues. We invite all people to walk hand in hand with us through our struggles, victories, and achievements. Join us weeknights from 6 to 7 p.m. Alliant Energy is a proud sponsor of Native Roots Radio.
For Civic Media, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. Republican gubernatorial candidate Tim Michels has floated the idea of implementing a flat tax in Wisconsin if elected governor. Michels has provided few details on his tax plan, but stated he would like to get the flat rate under 5%, and he would not want to raise taxes on anyone. Wisconsin's nonpartisan Legislative Fiscal Bureau prepared a new analysis that shows a flat tax would need to be 5.22% to not require significant spending cuts in the state. At that rate, 73% of Wisconsin tax filers would see an increase in their taxes, and the top earners in the state would see a significant decrease in the amount of tax owed, including for Michaels himself. A flat rate that doesn't raise anyone's taxes would need to be set at 3.45%. According to economists, that rate would reduce state revenue by $5.59 billion in the first year and $3.855 billion every year after that. You're listening to the Shaw 101 FM WAUK 540 AM.
Live programming for WAUK Radio 540 AM and 101 FM is produced right in the Shaw in beautiful downtown Waukesha, Wisconsin.
The Shaw 101 FM, WAUK 540 AM, Waukesha's only news talk station.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey. Now, yesterday when Greg Bach was here, he kept teasing me about, subtly dropping all the places I've lived and when I was living in San Francisco or New York or whatever. And I know he was joking, but it got me thinking as in preparation for today is that because I've gotten to live in a lot of different places, I have a lot of very interesting friends who've grown into having very accomplished, impressive careers. So I was like, I should start getting more of these people on the show. And today is no different. And I'm so excited to have both of these women who I've known for over 10 years, which is wild. I met both of you separately in different cities in 2011, and look at us now. And so for the rest of the hour, basically, we're going to be talking about health tech, and specifically health tech when it comes to women, both in the companies that are trying to solve problems that women have, but also what it's like to work in health tech and what it's like to work in health tech as a mother. So our guests are Alyssa Jaffe, who is a partner at 7 Wire Ventures, where she invests in companies that empower people to be better stewards of their health, and Kristina Farr, who is a former journalist, author of the Substack Second Opinion, and a health tech investor at Omer's Ventures. Welcome, ladies.
Thanks for having us. So good to be here.
To see you.
So it was so funny because I'm assuming you two ended up meeting because I know you from two different worlds. One of Alyssa and I met when I spent my last semester in DC, and Kristina and I met at a party in San Francisco, both in 2011. But then did you both meet because of your work in this sphere?
We met because Chrissy was a reporter for CNBC. Chrissy created the digital health beat there, and she was trying to get info from me. And no, she was awesome. We had an interview while I was a VC. I'm pretty sure I was like 7 months pregnant.
I was just going to say, you were super pregnant. I think it was with number 2, right?
Yes. And I just had my third, and we instantly hit it off. We became super close friends. Fast forward, Chrissy transitioned to the dark side here and came to be a VC. And now we're co-invested together in a number of companies. So it's a crazy world, and it's only getting smaller.
Yes, that is. Yes, we're in Chicago, San Francisco, and Milwaukee, the next big hub for tech, maybe. So my idea to have both of you on came from Chrissy. I don't know. I think this was maybe a month or so ago. You tweeted out, the people who say that fertility space has a small TAM, so total addressable market, are the same people who would have argued that the TAM for Airbnb is essentially the luxe travel market. Demand is far, far outstripping supply right now. So if anyone can bring the price down, the market majorly opens up. And I thought that was super interesting because it was one of those, I forgot what the phenomenon's called, but where you see it for the first time and then you start seeing it everywhere. Because then I felt like I started seeing other ideas of the baby formula shortage and what that's opening up, and different things as far as women's reproductive health or being a mom, and how technology or these companies can solve these problems and make it not only come up with solutions, but also make solutions cheaper. And so for both of you, what are some of the companies or ideas that you're excited about that specifically would help women?
Well, I'll touch on this first because that tweet hilariously was actually responded to by Elon Musk.
I know.
the only time in my social media career that has happened. I think it's because he's very invested in the space, having had about 19 children himself. So that was just really funny that day, and it caused that tweet to go somewhat viral. But yeah, I mean, I think this all comes down to the idea that really anything that Alyssa and I look at and invest in women's health. I mean, in theory, there's so many reasons why it makes sense. Like, we're talking about 50% of the population, women make 80% of the buying decisions in healthcare. We are the chief health officers of our household. And yet over and over and over again, you hear that these businesses have small markets that they're addressing. And the word that I hear all the time still is these are niche products and services. And this just blows my mind, that you could think that anything targeting women is niche. So I think that's one of the things that I was sort of trying to address in that tweet, is that these opportunities are so big. And then you look at something like the fertility area, where 1 in 8 couples struggle to conceive. Mm-hmm. And just, again, it's like, how could you think that that's a small opportunity? It's when a couple can't conceive, they do anything. They would move mountains to be able to have a child and grow the family. So that's kind of been our mission in life as investors, is to kind of re-educate the men in our space who represent the vast majority of venture capital, to start seeing this as a real business opportunity, and not a niche, and not just a philanthropic kind of side hustle.
Alyssa, do you have thoughts on that? Or I guess even the companies that you guys are or you gals are investing in, as far as big ideas that you think could be wildly successful if they get off the ground?
Yeah. So Kristin made some great points about, as you think about the power of purchasing for women, but also the challenges that we go through as it relates to our healthcare journey. And she and I both have spent a lot of time in thinking through where there's material opportunity. And quite frankly, it creates for us the ability. So at 7Wire, we have an operator-driven model. So we're really involved with our companies. We do fewer deals, we're more concentrated, so that we can help drive growth. And as part of this strategy, we can be more creative. So we invest in companies, but we also start companies through something we call Hatch, in which we can build companies where we see opportunity. And one of the examples here is we spend a lot of time in women's health, and Chrissy mentioned some of the large items in claims, whether it be fertility, maternal care. We're starting to see some postpartum companies, menopause. But as we kept going back to this thesis around, like, what is it for a woman and her journey in healthcare, one of the things that kept sticking with us was, well, where are the inflection points? And most women enter the US healthcare system in their early teens. They either need access to birth control, a parent makes them an OBGYN appointment, but then they turn 18 and they leave home and they effectively fall off the face of the earth. Like, the system doesn't engage with them, they don't engage with the system. But meanwhile, so many things are happening as it relates to their health that's really important, whether it be the conditions that may affect their fertility later on in life, like PCOS or endometriosis, or anxiety and depression. Women are disproportionately affected than men. And there's all these things building up. And instead of supporting them, we basically leave them to fend for themselves. And a lot of them end up on college campuses, where they're going to a place that says, we're here for your education, for your safety, for your food, for your housing, but somehow we're not here for your health. That's not our responsibility. And instead, you're going to get this little card with a number on the back that says, call your insurance if you need anything. And 96% of college students 93% of college students have some kind of health insurance. 76% of them are dependent on their parents' plan. So they're paying into the system and they're not getting any benefit. And we finally said enough is enough, that if we really want to think about longitudinal care, if we really want to think about preventative and proactive care, that we have to start earlier. We have to start at that major inflection point as women are leaving home and going to a university and they're on a college campus. And we decided to look around to see if anybody was really solving this problem, and felt like nobody was solving it in this comprehensive way. And whether it be for primary and urgent care, for women's health, for mental health, sexual health, pharmacy, crisis. And we said, we'll do it. Let's roll up our sleeves and build this business. So we launched an idea that took a very long time. Chrissy was one of the first confidants that I went to be like, am I crazy? Is this something we should build? And so grateful that she ended up coming in with us, and we actually co-invested in a business today called Caraway, and it's real and it's launched and it's focused on driving agency and independence in a woman's healthcare journey starting on college campuses. We recruited an amazing CEO, Lori Evans Bernstein. She had exited a business, very successful healthcare operator, and we're off to the races. It's early, so a lot to be done. But for us, ultimately, was how can we do this to be successful?
Well, I didn't even know that was a thing. That's so exciting. And I agree. As you said that, I was trying to think of what did I do for health care or health insurance when I was in college, and I can't even remember. Our guests this half hour are Alyssa Jaffe and Kristina Farr, who both are venture capitalists in the health tech world. And we only have 3 minutes before we have to go to our first break, so we can keep the conversation going if this is too much of a big question. But as you, whether it's Caraway Health or some of the other companies that you're ever developing or investing in, because sometimes these growing companies, as we've seen Airbnb potentially being part of our housing crisis, and sometimes the exploitation of some of the drive shares of exploiting workers and stuff. And so with something as sensitive as our health, how do you look at companies and see the problem that they're solving, but also look out for the ways that they could potentially make things, the negative externalities, not necessarily make things worse, but as far as how they could get exploited because a company needs to make money?
This is like the most important question I could have asked, and I do not have an answer in 2 minutes.
Okay, we can go back and talk about it after the break too. But I didn't even know that I was going to ask that question. But as you were talking about it, I was like, that feels important.
It's a huge question, and we think about it. I think about it so much, and Alyssa and I have talked about it a great deal. When you are in venture capital, you're looking for businesses that will achieve a certain amount of scale, and you're looking for a certain amount of returns. And sometimes that doesn't make sense with the healthcare context. So you have to find the right types of businesses that can scale in that way, that could satisfy a venture investor. And that may be kind of limited in scope. And I think we're all trying to figure out what that looks like. But we've seen lots of examples in the press of things blowing up because there aren't the right quality controls, that the physicians are feeling pressured to take care of patients in a way that doesn't feel kind of ethically aligned for them, and that technology can sometimes be a catalyst for all of this. That said, Kristin, I think the current system as is also super broken. Yeah. So we shouldn't fall into the trap of saying that anything innovative is necessarily bad, and that we don't want our healthcare disrupted, because the current system needs some changes.
Absolutely. So let's go to keep that thought. We'll go to break and we'll answer the rest of it as soon as we come back. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Hi, everyone. Listen to my show, The Matt McNeil Show, weekday afternoons at 3 p.m. on the Shaw 101. 1 hour every week. Sorry,
it goes really quickly.
It's done.
I wasn't sure if we were allowed to chat during commercial.
Well, so we live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And so when the mic's up right now, they can technically hear us there. We don't have a ton of people who watch there. They kind of scroll by, but we're not on the radio right now. And so, Alyssa, do you want to also answer that question? Otherwise, we can also move on to
President Trump lost the election.
Being a mom and working. Because when we come back, we do only have about 8 minutes, so we can go either direction.
Yeah, I'll do like a 30-second answer to cap off that question, and then we can pivot to being a mom. Because I now have 3 children. So
you have 3 kids now?
Yes, I have 3 boys.
And Christy, we haven't even talked about that. I saw it was at Richland's wedding. Was that the first time you announced it on social media?
Oh, yeah. but very quietly.
Yes, I noticed. I was like, what? No.
Yeah, we've got another one coming.
make good trouble by buying billboards, radio
well, we can
ads,
talk offline about that more.
in northern
She's
Wisconsin.
like far.
Federal and state
This is like
elections.
pretty far
Thank
along.
Ron Johnson and
Yeah, I know. That's why I was like, 22 weeks. I was like, wait, what?
Redistricting
So-
process.
Yeah.
A donation now if you're able at the MonaquaBrewingCompany.com.
Yep. I
Super
can't wait to
PAC.
flavor.
Help us make the
Home
politics
stretch.
of the
Get a
North Woods
margarita.
as clean as our lakes and streams.
That's
the
what one of my girlfriends who had a baby this
MonaquaBrewingCompany.com
summer. She goes,
Super
I
PAC
don't.
tab.
I miss having because she allowed herself like, oh, whatever. I'll tell you later.
Afternoon with highs around 54. Southeasterly winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Partly cloudy tonight, lows around 36. Daytime highs approaching 57. Tomorrow, mainly sunny skies and calm. Dry with temperatures a bit above average Saturday and Sunday, and highs in the upper 50s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 54 degrees.
The ladies will kick it, the rhyme it is wicked. Those that don't know how to be pros get evicted. A woman could bear you, break you, take you. Now it's time to rhyme. Can you relate to assistants open up to make
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey. Our guest this half hour is Alyssa Jaffe and Christina Farr, who both work in venture capital for health tech companies. And before the break, I had asked a big, monstrous question as far as how do you invest and develop healthcare companies knowing that they need to be able to scale and be profitable, but also will not exploit people. And Alyssa, I mean, Christina had a great answer. And Alyssa, I don't know if you want to also touch on that.
Yeah, maybe I'll just cap it off here that look, we're not CPG and we're not building widgets over here. Like this is real people's lives. And so companies that get into hot water are ones that market in the way that sometimes consumer brands are marketed. And this is people's lives and it's people's health and it's the outcomes that they drive. And one of the ways that we also solve for this is we think a lot about founder market fit. We not just, we talk a lot about product market fit in this industry, but founder market fit is the person or the team there to solve the problem? Do they genuinely understand this problem more deeply than almost anybody else? Why are they the best people in order to do that? I mean, they really connect with the problem. We've had founders who have severe mental illness. We've had founders who've had behavioral health businesses for their kids and building pediatric mental health support, whatever it may be. They get it, they understand it, and they're servicing the population while also servicing the challenge that they had experienced themselves.
And that's such a good point because I know since the pandemic, the amount of ads I now, as someone who is ADHD, the amount of ads I get now for different ADHD medicine or apps or all of these things that sound really enticing to be able to, maybe this will help. But you're right, as far as these health apps being a direct to consumer marketing strategy that you don't necessarily have to consult with your doctor, your primary care physician, to get access to, whether it's a drug or a, paid for BetterHelp therapist and stuff like that. So it's interesting is thinking about who's providing the information or the service or the, I guess, drug, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So to pivot a little bit, just because you both are working moms and you work in high pressure, male dominated industries, how's that going?
Maybe I'll start. So this is Liz. I'm a mom of 3 boys, and I think I actually recently wrote an article for Fortune. Stop asking women about work-life balance. It doesn't actually exist, and I think a lot of what we do in this world is people try to ask us to solve that there's a silver bullet, and in reality, it's every day. We're thinking about our families, our careers, our kids, our spouses, our friends, our family, and it's balance. It's unbalanced. Like the act of balancing is, think about a seesaw. Like you keep going back and forth until you inevitably are trying to hit an equilibrium that you almost never hit. And there's wonderful people in this industry and there's not so wonderful people in this industry. And I think many of us know that. But one of the things that we also have the benefit of is we have lived experiences. We have a diverse perspective. I've given birth to 3 kids. I know what that experience feels like. And so when there's a maternal health company that comes and talks about now, and my experience is privileged, my experience is unlike most women in this country. And at the same time, it's just being able to connect and have empathy and be a listener for the things that we understand that not everybody does. So ultimately, Kristin and I talk a lot about this. We're on a text chain with a bunch of a small group of VC women that we're all very close. And it's so wonderful to have a group of women that you can talk to about anything, that we can have. One part of the text is about the current markets and what's going on in digital health funding. The next part of the text is about, how to manage a child that's being really difficult. And the next is like, my baby was up last night. And we just continue to have that cyclicality in a way that feels like a whole person. It feels like we don't have to bifurcate ourselves in different buckets and that we can be ourselves.
Yeah, I think everything Alyssa said resonates so much. And, just to kind of level set for those viewers that may not kind of watch the venture capital industry quite so closely, but most funds have no women. And if they do, it's one check writer. So, that's the current state of things. And it's been like this for a really long time. It's a very, very male dominated industry. And so if you come in and you're the kind of one solo female check writer, I think you have some unique challenges, but also some unique opportunities. And like Alyssa said, sometimes your male colleagues may not see certain opportunities that are obvious to us as women. And so I like to think that, their bias can be our benefit.
Well, and instinctually that makes so much sense, right? Is if you're trying to look out for things as far as what you would be looking for as a woman, as a mom, and having the people who have never and will never go through that be the ones being like, well, I think this is a good company or a bad company because of XYZ. And that doesn't speak because they're not the target market of who they would be talking to anyways, right? And so it always baffles me when like makeup companies and underwear companies and all of these heavy like targeted industries that focus on selling things to women are headed up and started by men and invested in by men.
Yeah. Like part of our job too. Part of our job as investors is to see things other people can't see, but also to, I don't have a severe mental illness, but I have to understand what that's like and invest in a company there. At the same time, to Chrissy's first point of women make 80% of healthcare decisions, and as being the primary healthcare purchaser, we do know we have done this for our family. And ultimately, our job is to change it from the inside. Our job is to recruit amazing, diverse people to be on our teams and train those people to be the next generation of check writers. We are about to kick off a search for somebody on our team, and that's super important. Like, we need to have different perspectives around the table because that's what makes our firm amazing. That's what makes us have a competitive advantage in the types of checks that we write.
Absolutely. All right. Well, Alyssa, I know we have to let you go, but Christina's going to stick around. Thank you so much, Alyssa Jaffe, for joining us. We will definitely put your article up on the website so people can go read that. But thank you so much. And so stick with us. Christina Farr will still be here when we get back. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
And next up is me, the MONIELOVE, and I'm first because I'm a LAZIE. Contact and in fact, the style it gets harder. Cooling on the scene with my European partner, laying down track after track, waiting for the climax. When I get there, that's when I tax the next man or the next woman. It doesn't make a difference. Keep the competition coming, and I recite chapter in verse. The title of this recital is Ladies First.
The Shaw 101 FM, your fix for progressive talk.
Thank you so much, Alyssa.
Thank you. That was so fun. I'm so sorry.
It goes so fast, and so we'll have to do this again because you both are wonderful. And
you're wonderful. Always happy to do it again. You're crushing it. I love it. I love listening to you and your perspective. So however we can help you, just let us know. And
absolutely.
If you have, like, more social things that we can kind of promote and follow up, you let us know.
Oh, that would be so fun. And then next time, either if you ever come to Milwaukee or next time in Chicago, I will definitely let you know.
I know. I will. I feel like I'm usually more in Madison than Milwaukee, but
which makes sense.
Lunch on the way, or seriously, if you're here, let's do something.
Yeah, absolutely.
You guys are like neighbors.
I know.
I know. It's so close.
Chicago is I mean, you add the traffic, it gets a little bit longer, but it's really it's a fat. Yeah, it's not bad. So,
All right, ladies.
so much.
Bye.
Where do you want to go? We can stay on this because I think also since you are not American, I think the question of what can tech help.
I'm Ed Donahue
versus
with an
policy
AP News Minute. The economy
interesting.
returned to growth in the recent
Yeah,
quarter.
we're
The
happy to
AP's
go
Ben
over
Thomas has the story.
And you know your viewers better than I do, so I don't know what they want to hear about. But
It's hard to gauge who's ever listening to like on the radio because we don't get those numbers. But I mostly just pick what I think is interesting and we go there.
Okay, we'll follow your lead. Great. Okay, ask me anything.
All right, perfect.
So twice more before
Yeah,
the end of the
I can see
year.
how the 3 hours go by quickly.
Powell has warned that will bring pain.
The commercial breaks help break it up. I think if it was nonstop, like if it was just Joe Rogan 3 hours for no
Police say an
breaks,
Arkansas motorcyclist
I don't know. Maybe you'd
carrying
get
a
used to that
gasoline-filled
too. But
backpack is expected to
it's
survive.
good. It's a lot of work,
He
but
was
it's good.
engulfed by a
I would
fireball.
struggle to hear myself
The trooper
talk for
used
3
a
hours.
taser on him during a traffic stop. No license plate was visible on the motorcycle.
But it's good to see you in this role.
Approaching
Oh,
100 miles
thanks.
per
Yeah,
hour.
it's
I'm
been
Ed
quite the
Donahue.
journey to go from
Hi,
when
this is
you
Joe
were
Cordell with the
convinced
law
trying to
firm
convince me to go back
Cordell
to J
and Cordell.
school.
Divorce can
And I
be
was like, I don't know, that feels like a lot of money.
especially if children are involved. If you're a father and
look
want
where
to
I am.
protect your role
But
in
yeah,
your
it's
children's
fun.
lives,
It's really fun.
Remember Cordell and Cordell.
Yeah,
We've
it's
helped men
like
with
it's
matters like
amazing
these for
how
30 years.
sometimes you
and
just
we'd
have to
love
go
help
back to
you.
like your roots.
Contact Cordell and Cordell to schedule an
Yeah.
appointment with one of our
And that's
firm's
how like
Atlanta
you'd
area
think that
attorneys.
LA would be the place to go for media, and it turns out it's actually
793-0000. Online at
Wisconsin.
CordellCordell.com. 1 Glen Lake
Yeah,
Parkway
it's
Northeast,
interesting
Suite
because
975, Atlanta, Georgia,
I have so many
30328.
thoughts on it as far as how everything played out and worked out, at least for me. But it's worked out well.
Yeah,
It was the right move. It was a gamble, but it's the right move.
Yeah. Well, we'll see if I can ever pull it off in London.
Yeah.
Took her to the
That's
vet,
a whole other
but
topic I
no
want to
results.
catch up on as
A
far
little
as
dynamite in her food helps
as
Bella
far
keep a
as
beautiful coat with no
what's
scratching or smell.
happening there. It was funny when Alyssa said that as far as the first time you guys met. I remember Ben Robbins saying the same thing of the first time. Okay, we gotta go.
For Civic Media, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines. Republican gubernatorial candidate Tim Michels has floated the idea of implementing a flat tax in Wisconsin if elected governor. Michels has provided few details on his tax plan, but stated he would like to get the flat rate under 5%, and he would not want to raise taxes on anyone. Wisconsin's nonpartisan Legislative Fiscal Bureau prepared a new analysis that shows a flat tax would need to be 5.22% to not require significant spending cuts in the state. At that rate, 73% of Wisconsin tax filers would see an increase in their taxes, and the top earners in the state would see a significant decrease in the amount of tax owed, including for Michels himself. A flat rate that doesn't raise anyone's taxes would need to be set at 3.45%. According to economists, that rate would reduce state revenue by $5.59 billion in the first year and $3.855 billion every year after that. You're listening to the Shaw 101 FM WAUK 540 AM.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin Brey. Christina Farr is still here, who works in venture capital. We're investing in health tech. And it's interesting because you were like one of the most prominent health tech journalists for a long time. And you left CNBC to leave journalism entirely and go to be a VC. And so I want to get back to the mom question, but even making such a big career jump, did it feel like a big career jump or did it feel kind of like a natural progression?
Yeah, it's actually linked to the mom question because I got my new job in venture when I was, I think, 8 months pregnant, which is like not something I would advise for anyone to do a massive career transition, like mere weeks before you're about to pop out your first baby. It's a lot of stop and start. But I think it was a little bit linked in my mind, just thinking about kind of what would be the right thing for me to do as a mom and knowing that my time was not going to be 24/7 dedicated to work anymore. And that was one of the reasons why, media is so fast paced, as you know, it's so competitive. It's always on. So I was thinking that it would be good for me to do something where I could kind of use a different part of my brain. and think about things that have really long-term impacts. And building companies doesn't happen overnight. It can take a decade. So that was kind of part of my thinking. But I probably also had some existential angst about the state of media as well, that I'd be happy to talk about maybe over a glass of wine.
Yeah. Get that insider track on what's going on in the big boy companies. And so
totally, anytime.
Yeah. And so with because as we talk about the companies that you and Alyssa and your firms are looking at and investing in that can solve problems with our healthcare system. And, I think sometimes this push and pull of which sector is the right sector to fix some of these big problems. And sometimes if you're in San Francisco, or if you're sometimes talking to a Republican, the idea is always it's going to be the private sector. And what have you seen or experienced, or I guess maybe just your opinion of like where that is true and that the private sector can, and these growing companies and new innovative ideas can solve some of these bigger problems versus where it still needs to be policy and government?
It's a complicated question and complicated mix. You could look at one example, which is 10 to 15 years ago, a lot of physicians in this country were still using paper-based systems to track their patients' medical information. It would be, oftentimes they would like physically write things down. And that was how they would record your like, all your complex medical notes. And so the government had to step in a big way. And this happened kind of right after the 2009, 2010 recession, where they basically said, we need to figure out a way to get doctors using electronic systems. And so they just incentivized them. There was a massive pool of money, billions of dollars set aside for this. I think it was about $30 billion. And they got, over 90% of doctors using electronic systems in quite a short period of time. So you could say, yay, big win for government. This is clearly better. Like we need to be kind of moving into the 21st century here. But there is also, some downsides to that. And a lot of the problems are around the types of record keeping systems that these doctors migrated to were oftentimes the very outdated, very legacy technology systems that didn't allow for this information to be really easily shared. So then that kind of problem led to another whole huge set of problems where that information was essentially being locked up and medical mistakes were happening because you couldn't kind of easily share a patient's history between one health system and another. When you go to a different hospital, that information couldn't be easily shared. So, that's just one example that I think, tells a broader picture of what we often see in the healthcare space, that like well-meaning regulation can do a lot of good. But when you don't think it all the way through, and when you don't have the right incentives and the right rules in place, and sometimes you get these unintended consequences, and the private sector will kind of exploit that and take advantage of that for their own gain, but that may not be what's in the best interest of the patient.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And they are such big problems, and I think ultimately it probably is some kind of balance between the two, of something that is more nimble versus something that has the power of at least, the American government. But what kind of both as far as policy, but also your experience of you grew up in London, you're now married to an American, you live here, you've made most of your career here. And yet I feel like often I see some of both in your tweets, but also in your Substack, in the kind of like, what are we doing? And most recently, you were tweeted out that you were at a conference and said, America to moms, you should breastfeed for 18 months to ensure the optimal health for your child. Also, America, please return to work in less than 2 weeks and pump milk for this in this supply closet. And like, what has that felt like in the comparison of what how the UK approaches work-life balance for women versus what you're experiencing as a mom working in a big boy, like male dominated field of certain things that actually companies can't fix, and we just need our government to be smarter about. That's a leading question, but
yeah, I mean, I think there are only 5 countries in the world that don't have a federally mandated parental leave policy, and I believe it's us and like some random
Papua New Guinea,
and some small island nations. So that's not a good look. On top of the fact that you just took away reproductive rights, and there are massive infant formula shortages. Women are returning to work in this country in less than 2 weeks. It's shocking. And so I frankly just do not believe this country treats its women as well as other countries do. And I think it's a great travesty. And then you saw this data come out that the CDC put out a few weeks ago that the maternal mortality rate in the US is one of the highest in the developed, if not the highest of all developed countries. And 80% of those deaths are preventable.
Yeah.
So we're letting women die here in this country to have babies, and we're forcing them to have babies. And, that it just gives me chills thinking about this.
And we're potentially on the verge of convicting doctors who are trying to help them have babies.
Yeah.
We said this yesterday. In Wisconsin right now, there's 24 out of our 72 counties don't have an OBGYN.
And think about how much worse that's going to get over the next decade, and think about the lack of training opportunities for OBGYN residents in these states who will not get to see, some of the necessary kind of abortion related, miscarriage related procedures that they need to be seeing in order to get, proper medical training. So all of these things I think are really big problems. And I think we have a great healthcare system here for the rich. And if you don't have money, like it's just, there's people are getting bankrupted. They don't get bankrupted in other countries. I'm sorry, I get very passionate about this, but
no, I mean, that passion is good. Passion is good on the radio. It really brings it out. But no, I think a lot of people feel really passionately about this, and I think when talked about in a way of it doesn't have to be like this. It is a bipartisan where people actually, because it's like you said, it's bankrupting people and it's killing people. And the amount of avoidance of, well, I don't have insurance, so I'm going to avoid going to the doctor until I have a 10-pound tumor, and these things that, like you said, if you have insurance, if you have an employer who provides good insurance, it doesn't, maybe that's when the people who are holding on so tight to this private insurance game that almost everywhere else in the world doesn't do. And so have you done much, besides your own experience of being from England, have you done much of research either for companies or just out of your own curiosity of what could work here with so many people? I mean, while we're not nearly as big as China and India, we are the third most populous country in the world. And so sometimes I think people throw, oh, well, it wouldn't work here because we're so much bigger than any of these other European countries that have managed to figure it out, or any of the Japan or some of these other countries that have figured it out. Like, we have so many more people here. But as far as what could work and when it is actually politically feasible, is there any system that you think we could adopt?
Yeah.
And to make things better?
I do. I mean, I think the Commonwealth Fund is a great resource for this, for those kind of looking to get educated. But, America has this like weird Frankensteinian mix of both public and private sector in its healthcare system. We have government funded insurance. We have private insurance. We have so many different types of kind of payment and reimbursement. And it just doesn't make any sense. It's a complicated, intentionally complicated system. But I know that this is a country where, probably having this be entirely a government-run system would be difficult for a lot of people to stomach. So then you can look at some of the rest of the world, and you could look at countries like Singapore. And what's entirely possible in these countries is to have universal healthcare. Everybody has access to some kind of basic kind of healthcare set of services, but it doesn't need to be government-run. You could have it be some much more functioning combination of the two. Maybe it's you get some base level of care, and then everybody kind of pays into some kind of private system or kind of a system that's run by more corporations, and therefore, Republicans might find more palatable. And these models can work really well as well. You don't, it doesn't necessarily mean single payer just to say universal healthcare. They're not the same thing. So I think we might want to look at some of those countries if we think we could, never really move towards a single payer system here.
That's interesting. So this isn't, I'm going to go totally different direction, but producer Jane has worked in a male dominated industry in radio. We talk a lot about how talk radio doesn't have a lot of women in it. When I worked in sales in tech companies, male dominated, even comedy to a certain extent, male dominated. You're now working in venture capital, which is also male dominated. And even when we've had so many candidates come on during this election cycle on the down ballot for our state legislature who are women, and the vitriol that I think happens for women leaders, whether they're founding companies or VC or politicians, is kind of universal across all of these. And so what has it been like making that transition? I mean, I don't know if media was much better anyways, but as far as your experience of navigating places with men, and not only just men, but men with big egos. Jane's smiling. You got 2 minutes. Another big question to round this out for.
Yeah. And I've worked in male dominated industries basically since college as well. I think we need to, and this is something you and I should also get a glass of wine and talk about, but there's some ways in which it's the bias is obvious. And then some ways in which it's non-obvious. And I think when you've been in a sector for long enough, you can kind of think of examples of both, and it all adds up. And so I think, it's like the text message group that Alyssa referenced that we have. I think women in this generation have started to come together and just form alliances in a way that we didn't 20 or 30 years ago, quite to the same extent. So there are more of us now, even though we are still in the minority. And I think we need to just be on each other's sides and root for each other and have these open and honest conversations about everything that we deal with and how to get out the other side.
Absolutely. Well, I can't wait to see you in person because it feels like we have a lot to talk about that's not public. And so thank you so much for being here. Kristin Farr is a former journalist and author of the Substack Second Opinion. You should absolutely subscribe to that, and a health tech investor at Omer's Ventures. Thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to have you back.
Me too.
All right. Well, we're going to take one more break and then wrap up today's show. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
The good old boys club, cigars and handshakes. I appreciate you, but no thanks. Another gear in a big machine. Don't sound like fun to me. I don't want to be part of the good old boys club. I don't want to be a part of your good old boys club.
Your rights are on the ballot November 8th. Voting rights, civil rights, and...
Thank you so much. Sorry I asked you like really big questions without giving you a lot of time.
It's so good.
I would love to FaceTime soon and catch up and talk about all the things that we couldn't talk about on air.
Yeah, come out and see us too, because we have a
we should.
So anytime you want to.
Perfect. All right. Well, tell Jared I say hi.
I will. We'll see each other soon. Good luck with the rest of the show.
Thank you. Talk to you soon.
Multi-millionaire Senator Ron Johnson won't stop trying to cut our Social Security. But you don't have to take my word for it. He just keeps saying it. Talking about benefit cuts.
Do you need to reduce benefits, maybe on a means-tested basis?
Or forcing seniors to work longer.
But you have to factor that in the programs, probably in terms of raising retirement ages.
And if
We
that
had a
wasn't
texture
scary enough,
about
now
something
he's
they would
saying
like us to
Social
talk about,
Security shouldn't
going
even
back
be
to the first.
guaranteed.
So we'll come back
And if
around to that.
politicians in Washington didn't renew it every year, it should end. I guess ending Social Security isn't a big deal if you're as rich as Senator Ron Johnson. But for the rest of us seniors, it's a matter of life and death, literally. Paid for by AFT Solidarity, www.aft.org, and not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee. AFT Solidarity is responsible for the content of this advertising.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. A mix of clouds and sun this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 54. Southeast winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Lows dip down to about 36. Tonight, partly cloudy skies. Partly cloudy skies again tomorrow. Highs around 57. Temps a bit above average Saturday and Sunday with highs in the upper 50s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 54 degrees.
I got my ticket for the long way round. 2 bottle whiskey for the way. And I sure would like some sweet company. And leaving tomorrow, what you say? When I'm gone.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin with Kristin, Brey. They're both lovely friends. Dynamic, yes. And it's funny having that vernacular come back as far as business startup-y words. I was like, I can speak this language kind of. It's been a while, but VC and TAM and all these acronyms that are different than the acronyms we have in politics. But that was really fun. So hopefully that was interesting for more people than just me, because I found it interesting.
Well, I think it's lovely just to hear about women who are, again, stretching out their careers and stretching out their reach and still exploring what are traditionally male places and making a difference. I think that's critical.
Yeah.
Nothing changes otherwise.
I agree. Well, did we any feedback on the text line?
Well, going back to the first hour of the show, Kristin, and you're gonna start off every day now just looking at down ballot races and everything as we head up to November 8th. And a texter from the 414 asked if we could please discuss the referendums on the ballots in Waukesha County. And I think there's been so much attention just about the election itself. I don't even know what referendums are on the ballot.
So I think this one, there is a couple. I actually downloaded. The Wisconsin Election Commission has a Excel spreadsheet that you can download that has all of the referendums that are across any state, all the entire state. So everything that's going to be on anyone's ballot. I think there's over 200 of them. 80 of them are having, the only ones on there that are binding are the school district referendums.
Okay.
So over 50 different school districts with 80 different referendums are basically asking for more money. And so being able to ask their voters to increase property taxes and be able to get more funding because the school districts feel like they don't have appropriate funding. So that is based on your school district and where you live. And if you vote yes on those, it's voting yes. And it actually has ramifications for money paid into the school district. Yes. As far as I understand, and I will double check, but everything else, all the other referendums that you would see on your ballot are advisory referendums.
So they can basically be ignored.
Well, it's just if they don't technically pass, right? And so if they overwhelmingly, so go back to fair maps. And so for the last 10 years, before we had new redistricting maps and now have the maps that we have going into this election, there was a movement, organization, campaign of across over 50 different counties. They had referendums on the ballot asking for people's opinion on adopting a system where a nonpartisan group would be in charge of making the redistricting, doing the redistricting lines for maps.
Which they actually do in Iowa.
Yes. And so overwhelmingly, county after county, even very red counties, this quote unquote passed, or it was favorable. And nothing happened, right? We still have the maps that we have. The legislature was still the people who drew it. It got, because there was Tony Evers as a Democrat, he vetoed those maps and it went through the court system. But ultimately, there was no nonpartisan group that came up with it. And so same thing, I think this is like the third or fourth time in Milwaukee that legalizing cannabis is a referendum. Milwaukee could overwhelmingly be in favor of that based on the referendum and the voting, but it's not going to change anything. And so I think the one in Waukesha, and I have to look up, has to do with making the 1,800 different organizations that are in charge of our elections. So in Wisconsin, we have one of the most decentralized ways of
election systems.
So basically, instead of, a top down, or like each county just having all of the rules, there's one municipality where they basically have 47 people, like 47 voters. And so based on the city, based on the town, based on the county. And so it's very, very decentralized. And this was part of the reason why things felt disorganized. And there was things that are left to the discretion of clerks in 2020, when we were in a very chaotic situation is trying to conduct an election. But I'm pretty sure that one of the Waukesha referendums, which again, even if I think it was favorable and the majority of people said, yes, we want this, what it's actually asking is having a more uniform resources and people across all 1,800 municipal clerks, or people who the different offices that run these elections, in that the tiny little towns. So let's put it in here that Amory, shout out to Amory and our Lake Air up there, and Milwaukee, or even Waukesha, because Waukesha is the third biggest county in the state, should have the same amount of resources to run their elections, which doesn't make sense.
Not if you're a community that has 46 voters,
yes,
compared to the city of Madison, or even compared to the city of Amory.
And
right?
so, yes, so that's one. So we can do some of the bigger referendums, but it is because we don't have binding state referendums that affect statewide law. It is advisory. It doesn't mean you shouldn't vote in them, and it doesn't mean you shouldn't know what you're voting for, because the reason why these get on the ballot is to show popularity and to be able to have, more than just polls as far as where people fall. They actually, was on this all the voters in this county voted on this issue. And so we have hard evidence of the popularity of this policy idea, but it doesn't necessarily change the law.
Well, and again, thank you to gerrymandering, we have a lot of politicians who don't have to do anything that their constituents want. They just don't. It's like, great. I think it's almost like a placebo vote. Let's put it on there. Sure. Put the referendum on there. Aren't they cute? They can support it. They can check the box, and then we're going to laugh and do nothing.
Yeah. I'm so happy. I'm so happy I'm going on vacation for a little bit soon. It's like I sent the New York Times, the Daily podcast. They had the rundown, which they did an episode solely focused on Wisconsin, and I sent it to my in-laws, so my sisters-in-law and my father-in-law. It's like, you should listen to this. And then my sister-in-law listened to it this morning, and she goes, I feel really angry now. I said, welcome to my life.
But we laugh a lot.
We also laugh a lot. And regardless of what happens on November 8th, we will still be here, both balancing out our crankiness and our complaining with our laughing. So that'll about do it for us today. We will be back tomorrow, TGIF. Stick around for Dueling Tangents with Luke and Brian and the Chad Holmes Show. And otherwise, have a great day. This has been As Goes Wisconsin.
If you're looking